have people picking up that conversation along the way. And I'll ask for another big hand clap for our panel for taking the time to be here, but also lending their expertise. And I'll excuse them so we can be able to go to our next session, which is going to be our second last session. We'll have a small session towards the end on personal branding as a journalist, which I think is extremely important. I was at MOOBS, I think 2 weeks ago, talking to some of the young accountants there at the time that had been asked to talk about personal branding. And I remember giving them an example, and I'll just use that as a snippet before I ask Jan to come and take our next panel. And I told them one quick story of a gentleman who was referred to me by someone who knew me, and they wanted this person to get a job as in our media house at Next Media. And because the person had connections to me, they said, could you please sit down with this young man and interrogate whether they have the capacity and potential to join you? And I said, of course, of course, of course. We never stop anyone from coming because you never know where the gems will come from. So if someone thinks they have potential and they've been recommended by someone that I know, we'll sit down, assess them, see what they are like. And if there's potential, at bare minimum, we'll take their records and try and keep them in the database so that if an opportunity ever comes up, we'll then see what we can do. This young man comes and walks into my office, and the moment he walked into the room, there was clearly something wrong because everyone sort of turned and paid attention. And it took me all the energy in my body to be able to talk to this guy because he had such a bad audio order that I had to hold my nose to talk. No, I'm not kidding. This is a true story from about 2 months ago. I had to hold my nose to try and talk to him. Initially, I tried to make it, respectful and just sort of hold my nose like this because I couldn't literally talk. I was choking from the kavubuka. And eventually, I just couldn't help myself. I just told the guy, you know what? Here's the honest truth. I'm having a hard time having a conversation with you because, guy, buy a deal. Yeah. I know you've been working a lot the whole day and everything. Talk to your mom, talk to your dad, talk to your friends. Because right now I can't see you as the person who has potential. I'm just seeing someone who smells. I told this guy to his face. I told him, look, I can't interact with you because, and I hope he took the feedback. And so I was just trying to use that as an example for why personal branding is important. As journalists, we spend a lot of time in the field. You're going to interview a minister. And then you walk into the minister's office and the minister doesn't want to talk to you because they look at you and they're thinking, hey, this person, how shall we have a conversation? So we'll have Joanne come and do a little small session on personal branding, which is important. Now, let's talk about elections and independent reporting. We are on the road to 2026. We are almost on our way there. Let's reflect on 2024, which has been a very interesting year of democracy and what's been happening around that. To share insights on this, I'm going to invite Elvina Nawaguna, who is a journalist. We'll probably get some insight from Canary, who I think is still in the US, but should be able to send us a recording from wherever he is. Derek Wandera, who is journalist also and is with News 24/7. And then we also have Aida Bukubuza, and finally, Raymond Amompire from the Center for AI Ethics and Governance in Africa. And I'll ask him to come now, please, and join us on the platform. And then I'll hand over to Jan Ajwang, who is going to employ her English and ask the relevant questions. It's now exactly 3:05. We will give them 40 minutes to have a conversation and then do about 10-15 minutes for feedback, and then we'll do our final session on media viability and then do that quick one on personal branding before we wrap up our media week.
Ben, asking is for free. Any journalist can ask any question. A very good afternoon to you all, and welcome to a very equally important topic. Yesterday, a little bit of it was touched, and we are now going to zoom in a lot more on what's happening in the world. It's been a year of democracy. I don't know what that means to you, but I have been watching the elections like a series. I think from the beginning of the year, I was just getting amazed at what was happening and what it means for journalism. And so joining us today on the panel, are very important people, because the subject is now finding itself between an intersection of journalism and tech, safety, all manner of things, AI, and I hope that in the few minutes that we have, we shall be able to give justice to this this topic. Of course, some of them need no introductions, but others need to be introduced. And just allow me to check with the team while I get back to you whether we can actually first hear from Canary. He went to cover, Canary Mugume from NBS, he went to cover the elections, and we'd like to hear his perspectives generally, and before I get back to the panel.
Well, media houses taking sides on the side of the candidates. Well, I think it's a wrong way of practicing media, because I also saw it in Kenya when I was covering the Kenyan elections. I think it's a bit problematic because you're supposed to hold both sides accountable. Like I said in my first video, how do you then? Because if you present yourself as someone who is opposed to, for example, Joe Biden, how do you then hold him accountable, yet you've openly showed that you are biased? It means that each and every question, the audience will be seeing a lot of bias, even when it's genuine. So it becomes very hard. I think our job here should and must be getting the most out of the candidates, present themselves to the audience, hold them accountable by their pledges, and then leave the audience to judge. Ours is not to bias the audience on who they should vote for and who they shouldn't. I think that's not our role. Our role is to act on behalf of the audience. I don't know who appointed us that role, that we are the watchdogs, but it's who we are. And therefore, from our kind of work and how we practice journalism, we are supposed to let the audience decide on its own after we've given them informed facts. So ours is to fact check, hold the leaders accountable, and query their manifestos. It's not to bias the audience. If we cross the line, then it becomes a bit problematic on what exactly our role as media is. It actually soils our would-be role. So yeah, but I've seen a lot of media in many countries take sides. I don't think it's a good, and these are countries that really pride in being the biggest democracies or big democracies. So I don't know, but it's because of their particular contexts. I don't think that would actually work here in Uganda. So my biggest takeaways from how journalists cover elections in the US compared to that in Uganda, of course, those are two totally different contexts. I will not go into it, but you know how elections in Uganda are, and you just watched how elections are in the US. But of course, media here, I think, remains number one, the glue for information. During elections, I think it's when systems that have been built start to be used to start to manipulate information, and so it's always the media that remains the glue for each and every stakeholder. If it's the electoral commission, if it's the candidates, if it's their manifestos or anything, it's always the media that remains the glue. Number two, the media, I think in the US, understand that they hold so much power. So whatever narrative that is built by them, whichever side they are, it's deliberate. It's deliberate. They know that, for example, if we go by this narrative, this is the result we expect, and they have the country at heart. In Uganda, of course, journalists in Uganda also have the country at heart, and I think they are very, very passionate about what they do. Just that I think we've not yet realized how much power we hold during such a time, and therefore, in our decision making, I don't know whether we actually sit and think about the consequences of our kind of reporting and kind of narratives that we do push. Maybe it's something that we need to think about next time, since the election cycle is around the corner. That if we front this narrative, what consequence does it have on the country? We have so much power, and we can drive powerful narratives. Some can turn out to be harmful, but it's because we never think about the consequences while we're driving them. Number three, I would say media in the US tries and pushes harder. Of course, I know you've seen vast media, but what I've seen is that it tries and pushes harder. Just because you fall on one side does not mean that they should sympathize with you. Just because you're opposing government in power, you're not incumbent, they should not sympathize with you. They really go hard. And I think I've seen that. I think media in Uganda, just because some people fall on either side, they end up sympathizing with them as opposed to holding them accountable too for their actions and their pledges. I think Teko I have been very crucial in this election, extremely crucial actually for broadcasters. If you're a broadcaster like TV and you do not have the map of the United States and showing how each state has voted in the past two elections, you're most likely going to lose out on viewers. Every broadcaster, every TV had a map and was explaining data, and these are systems that they built. I was able to visit some of them, and I could tell that they invest a lot of money in trying to build these systems, just for the sake of explaining to their voters. The other thing they do is they do polls. So they do polls in two ways. One, to determine who is winning in what state, just right ahead before the election, so they know how things are standing. And then two, they do what they call exit polls. So, for example, immediately after the election, after the polls close, this counting of ballots and what, of course, for us in Uganda would be thinking about who has won at what polling station and all that. For them, what they do is they use that data. They interview people who have just voted. What do you think about the economy? What do you think has been the biggest problem of the current government? What do you think has been the top two issues that have influenced you to vote the way you voted, and things like that? So immediately polls close at 7 p.m. There's data coming in. 52% feel number one issue in this election has been the economy. 48% feel it has been democracy. 15% feel it's been an issue of abortion. 10% feel it's been an issue of immigration, things like that. But actually, it's not even just broadcasters. I've been watching, for example, Washington Post. Washington Post doesn't have a TV. But it had a website. The website was showing data popping in at each and every second, and they were telling you where it was popping in from. But it also had a sort of broadcasting. Our dailies,
I think we can
now
give it
post
a
or
pause there.
monitor or New Vision. They stage a whole broadcast online.
Okay, sorry about that. And just not to cut the line of thoughts, but I am sure that we are seeing quite a difference in how we approach and how we view elections coming from Canary, and compared to how it's done in Uganda. And so I promise to introduce, we'll get back to Canary. I promise to introduce to you some of my panelists, because of course Derek doesn't need any introductions. because he's been in the trenches. But I would like us to meet Ida Bukubuza, who is an enthusiast of digital transformation, innovation, and technological advocacy. And she has a master's in digital information management and systems innovation from the University of Leeds. They told me to add my accent. Ida has a strong background in gender responsive and inclusive technology innovations, harnessing technology for social change. She is a founding partner and team leader of IDEA Gender and Technology Initiative Uganda, an organization that is delivering information, communication, and technology solutions for sustainable development. Welcome, Ida, to the panel.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Jen.
Yeah. And then my friend, Raymond Amumpaire. He is a Ugandan lawyer who has a passion for keeping the digital world fair and safe, and is fascinated by technology and how it shapes our lives. And he believes strongly that laws should protect people in this new digital age. He is the team lead at the Center for Artificial Intelligence Ethics and Governance in Africa. Okay. Brilliant. And online, we have somebody who might not be new to some of you. Elvina Nawaguna is a reporter, an editor, and an educator based in Washington, D.C. She traces her journalism roots to Makerere University Mass Communication Department and the New Vision, which laid the important foundation for her entire media career. And she cut her teeth as a features writer at New Vision. Later on, she wrote for the Reuters, Market News International, CQ Roll Call, and Business Insider. And she's currently an editor at Punchbowl News, the go-to outlet for everything on Congress and Washington. And she's also served as an adjunct professor at the American University School of Communication. Welcome, Elvina. How are you keeping? Should we greet you in Luganda? Wasuzotia.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hi. Thank you. Yeah, I'm so excited to virtually be in the motherland.
Right. I guess it's still quite early for you in DC. We have had perspectives about the elections from Canary who visited, but for you, who is like Kamutuze, we would like to find out from the perspective of journalism and the influence of technology and how it has influenced decisions on elections. Is there anything we can learn from your experience, especially on the field and even back at the desk as an editor? What have been your key takeouts? What should Ugandan journalists learn from your experience?
Much for having me. It's 7:20. 3 days past, I think that was Wednesday. 3 days since we had this monumental election
And as many of you and everybody in the world saw, people were expecting a very tight election. Some were expecting Kamala Harris to win, and there's collective shock around the country at just how much one Donald Trump winning, but how well he won. He not only won the electoral college vote, but he won the popular college vote, and it wasn't a close call. It was a wipeout. It was like huge. And so there's very many reasons why Trump won, but obviously on the topic of today, we cannot discount the role that artificial intelligence played. Misinformation and disinformation played a very big role in shaping the views and the perceptions of voters in America. And for those of you who are following, you could see that with AI, you don't need to have a degree. You don't need to be an expert. You can come up with anything. You can create deep fakes. And so AI was used to create narratives, especially around immigrants. And there's a deep fear of immigrants and an association of immigrants with crime, even though statistically native-born Americans commit crimes at a significantly higher rate than immigrants. But that became a narrative, and the narrative that Haitian immigrants were eating dogs and cats and people's pets, that took hold and added to the fear of immigrants. And then we saw a video circulating that showed a man who claimed to have been a fresh immigrant from Haiti and claimed to have voted in two different counties, so committing voter fraud. Obviously, that blew up, but it turns out it was a deep fake created in Russia. And so you saw all of this kind of fake news and fake information being disseminated through social media, and the social media companies are not equipped to be able to swat everything that comes out. And so people took that in, whether it was about immigration or crime or the economy, and it did influence. We can't discount the fact that it did influence the way people were perceiving the elections and the candidates. And I don't think that we did as good a job as journalists at correcting the record, or we want it's hard to keep up with all the stuff that's coming out real quick. There's machines, there's entire outfits in Eastern Europe that are dedicated to producing fake information, and it's really hard to keep up with that. I can't hear you, Jen.
Yes, I can hear you. Okay. Shall I signal to you? So let me get to Derek, sorry. I don't recall. To Derek Wandera, who has covered elections before. He's now a political analyst, current affairs reporter still. Elvina has just said that she doesn't think that journalism did quite a good job, or quite enough, really, to beat the race of the VIX and AI. And I'm just asking about you, what is the experience in the last elections, and do you think we are actually getting ready enough to run and beat that race?
Thank you, Jan. Yeah, well, it's different contexts, but Uganda has a lot with catching up with AI and stuff. But still, I know the place of journalism in all societies, one that's always very, very important, especially when it comes to elections. You asked me to just try to dig up the last election, which I participated day one. There was an incident that I feel AI helped a lot in trying to realign the fears of the people, but also also fact checking. It was the day we were in Kayunga, and I was on the Bobby Wine Trail, which is a national platform. And while we were there was a standoff between police and Bobby Wine, especially his supporters, but also himself over there. And because there were early days of the campaigns, the police had employed all manner of weapons, so to say. And there was this one called a sound bomb. Now that was the first time many of us got to interact with what the sound bombs. It causes damage onto someone's body, but not as much as a bomb does. But its sound is very enormous, and its reaction in that particular point where it has erupted from, it's always very, very scary. So this was an improvised explosive that was hurled at Bobby Wine's just at close range, and damaged one of his aides, Dan Magic. Broke, I think, one of his teeth, and he was rushed to hospital. But as journalists were still gathering information of how it happened, where and when, talking to some people, and we went as close as I talked to Dan, not too much, but I just wanted to understand what exactly happened. The police issued a statement and said someone within Bobby Wine's camp had this explosive device and had actually hurled it. Now, it put us, the traditional media, at a in a very difficult position, because we know who is hurling this, and we've seen them hurl them, but just telling is not enough. Just telling the story that we've seen police is hurling this explosive device every now and then, it's just not enough. A person who is not on ground, but also who has not been following the election campaigns, might find it very difficult to resonate with your kind of narrative. So, actually, thanks to AI, one of our panelists here, Canary Mvume, followed up with tech and went and followed that video and played it back multiple times, and a lot of technicalities were involved from which direction is it coming from. Because when we are in that election, so you see that journalists are positioned in one side, there's the other side of the security, there's another of the supporters. So he followed the direction from which this explosive is coming from. And surely it was coming from the security side, the police side. And if we didn't have AI at that time, we would have probably changed our narrative as journalists. And, you know, we have to follow the authority. And we say, the authorities say that Bobby Wine people are the ones who hurled this explosive. So in such a time, as journalists, we need AI, we need tech to help us to get moments in real time. But if we didn't have them, so this went on, a lot of misinformation, disinformation went on as much as it could. But in moments like that, we needed AI so badly.
Okay, Raymond, I kept seeing your face changing here and there, and I'm just going to allow you to speak to your thoughts on what you've already heard.
Yes, thank you so much, Jan, and Derek, and my co-panelists. It's really interesting to see the power that AI has afforded us as the fourth estate. I'm a lawyer, but I'm also formerly or recently was a journalist while under law school. But of course, AI has now, just to add on to what Derek was saying, has upped the power we now have as journalists And with citizen reporting, the rest of us who are not journalists also become journalists now because we have mobile phones and so on and so forth. But AI is helping us work on things like, work with things like open source intelligence, for example, to verify things as they are happening, just like you were saying. But AI is also playing a pivotal role in helping us fact check some of the information we get. I'm going to borrow a scenario from the Israel and Hamas or Palestine offensive that is going on. Al Jazeera has been at the forefront of using artificial intelligence more than any other media house across the world in trying to verify some of these stories. So sounds, when they happen, shelling some of the buildings in Palestine by the Israel missiles, and when it happens, AI has been at the top of this. So AI is working hand in hand with journalists to make sure that we do our recent role, informing society, influencing society, but also reporting freely and fairly. Now, of course, we have known it as snake oil, but it's not a solution to everything that we have when you look at democracy and maybe like election seasons. AI, just like Nawaguna was saying, has been at the forefront of ensuring that people, the information ecosystem is flooded, information is manipulated, and the ecosystem of information is flooded with wrong narratives, wrong information, wrong facts and stats, okay? We have observed recently the election in the United States, but also most recently the election in India. And I think this year alone, over 18 countries in Africa also went to the polls. So it has been really interesting, seeing how states like Russia use AI through their state-sponsored rogue cyber actors to now influence an election in like South Africa, or to influence an election in Mexico, to influence the United States election. So it really has the good and it has the bad. But I believe as we continue having some of these discussions, then we can really find that small chasm, the middle ground that is in between the two, where we can actually enjoy the fruits while minimizing the negatives. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Raymond. Ida, your thoughts, please. I mean, do you? It's a little bit nice to hear that we are graduating from a certain level of hype about AI just from the conversation I'm hearing. But I just want to come back to you and ask you what are your thoughts, really, especially in terms of citizens' knowledge and understanding, and able to be able to differentiate what is true and what's not, especially in critical times like elections, and also the influence of AI actually when it's used actually negatively.
Well, thank you so much, Jan, and a very good afternoon to everyone. I'm not a journalist, but I am a person who is very vast experience with technological transformation and ICT for D. So within this particular conversation, I want to look at the I and the C, but also technology as an enabler. Oftentimes when we do hold such conversations, we are going to talk about technology to feel very technical, but I just want to reassure you that tech is just an enabler of the I, and some that is information and communication. And I think that's why I come in this particular conversation. I wanted to borrow the same exact line from the previous, I don't remember his name, the lecturer, who said there is no excuse regarding disinteresting us from the role of technology in today's changing world of work, or regarding in accessing information, especially in a time like now. 2025 is going to be a hit over year for us here in Uganda, and it's going to be very interesting. However, I want to look at the intersection between technology in regards to platforms and devices and tools that there is in the technological ecosystem versus social media. And this I'll use because we are talking about Media Week. There has been a very pertinent and very important and significant way of how we look at technological transformation in democratical process versus what social media has to offer, and people think that is technology. So within this particular conversation, recently, about 2 months ago, I think a month ago, the UN at the Summit of the Future, there was a compact or a particular part of the Global Digital Compact. And there was some kind of action plans that was adopted. And one of what is in section 24, and allow me to just quote, where they were very specific to talk about how they will seize the opportunities associated with both established technologies, the normal social media trends and everything, the other tools and devices of technology, and also emerging technology and where AI falls into the emerging technologies. So, and how best to address the challenges as well as the opportunities that there is in technology, especially emerging technology, in today's conversations, in whatever we do around the world, in different sectors, and obviously in, influencing democracy. So just to add on to something very, very important and similar, we're already in November, okay. In September, 15th September was International Democracy Day. And it's very interesting that the theme was influenced or was commemorated and celebrated in regards to AI as a tool for good governance. And I just want us to have the conversation. I will have my points directed in that particular arena. Reasons because as Uganda, and having a conversation as such now is very important in a sense that we are going into pre-election period for the general term until the next 4 years, and how best, just not to relate to what the US, because I mean, I was following the news, but I feel like there was a young man who talked about understanding and interpreting our way things of Africans. I'm interested in the US election, basically I'm partly in and here now for the US, but also to look at what do we as Ugandans, especially now where we are into the buzz of emerging tech, have to talk about and what we can use as opportunities, and also realizing some of the threats posed by AI. Yeah, thank you.
Right, Elvina, I hope you're still there with us. Okay. Right, so did you hear what my other colleague said? Yes, you can make a comment on that, and then you give us some key takeouts before we let you off.
Many good uses for AI. You're seeing news organizations across the world, even the most reputable news organizations, starting to adopt AI as part of their practices, and electoral systems as well are adopting AI, and particularly for the African continent and Uganda, AI has a lot of promise for, for democracy, like managing voter registration systems, chatbots to engage with voters and answer their questions. So there's a lot of good use for AI, but yes, I understand why there are fears. But what is our role as reporters, news organizations, journalism educators in this? Because the increased use of AI also comes with increased distrust in the media. According to the World Economic Forum, there's that only 40% of the world population report that they trust media, which is really like a dismal number. So we have an increased responsibility to make sure that we are not worsening the trust in the media. And how do we do that? Any organization, any reporter, any journalist using AI has a responsibility to also disclose that this is not something that was generated by a human being, but we want people to know that this was something that was generated by AI. Don't give a fake byline. We need to educate people on understanding that. We also, and I know Ida talked about the local context. The way the media in Uganda operates is culturally, we are closer to our community than the media in the US that operates in a kind of like there's a bigger wall between the media and the society. And here in Uganda, we are closer to our communities. So we have a role to play in helping people understand what AI can do for them and what it can do to hurt them, how to decipher whether something they are getting in their news feed or in their social media is true or false. What tools are there for them to use to reverse image searches, or to check whether a video has been altered, or an older image is being used to present something as something current. So we in Uganda, I'm saying we because I'm Ugandan, we get to play that role in educating the publics on how to, one, trust the media, but also know how to consume media in a healthy way. Particularly in places like WhatsApp, I think Ugandans and Africans and Asians use WhatsApp at a bigger, much more than parts in the Western world, because of, it's how we communicate with our communities, we communicate with our cousins. But the way WhatsApp is set up, and that's a very dangerous place for misinformation, is because it's encrypted and because of its privacy settings. The owners of WhatsApp cannot come in there to moderate. And so for us as journalists, how do we help people who are in those spaces? I know a lot of you might be in WhatsApp groups and you see people forwarding. Jan knows I've jumped out of some WhatsApp groups because of people forwarding false information. Some groups are having somebody be a moderator to make sure that they're watching for false information. How do we help people, especially as we get closer to elections, to the 2026 elections? How do we help the public in Uganda understand that their WhatsApp groups are where they're going to be getting also the worst information? How do you encourage them to have a moderator who's going to fact check? There's fact-checking tools out here in the West that are also available for people out there. We should integrate those fact-checking tools into our reporting. And so adopt AI, but also be transparent and educate the public in how to healthily consume information and know what is fake and what is not fake.
Right, thank you so much. And who wants to go first? The way I'm seeing. Raymond, you go first, then quickly. I know I'm supposed to let you guys all up, so over to you, Raymond.
Yes, thank you so much, Jan, and thanks to Nawaguna once again. For me, before we leave this stage, I would like to sort of like supply some fresh perspective for my colleagues and industry peers in the fourth estate, as well as all the other people that are tuning in. AI has come in to aid what we do. AI is very data intensive, right? It's algorithms using data that has either been scrapped illegally or submitted lawfully. As to the means, we can always have a discussion for that another day. So they use all this information to curate certain responses so that when you prompt an algorithm and ask it a certain thing, it can answer you in a certain way based on the data it has gotten. So it's our role as the press, as civil societies, as academia, when we come to some of us who are doing research around these areas, to ensure that we provide good quality data for the training of these large language models, so that the responses we are getting, the way we are using them, is not disastrous to us. And at the Center for AI Ethics and Governance in Africa, we have really been trying to push for an Afrocentric approach towards the development, the deployment, as well as the use of AIs. And for us in the fourth estate, we come in the area of use. And maybe one last one, on the 23rd of October this year, in the Kazan Republic in Russia, we had the 16th BRICS Summit. And according to the Kazan Declaration, point number 38 was talking about the BRICS bloc supporting African solutions to African problems. And we also know that we need Afrocentric solutions to our problems as the media, to us who are researching on AI, to those of us who are developing and using AI, and so on and so forth. Tomorrow is the World Freedom Day, not World Press Freedom Day, but World Freedom Day, November 9th. It would be very interesting to see discussions around how AI in journalism is affecting freedoms, just rights like right of expression, the right to information, access to information, as well as the freedom of expression. Thank you.
Brilliant. Ida? take it up from there.
Well, thank you again, Jan. So just to build on to what Raymond has already made as a submission. So relating to what we do at IdeaGen and Technology Initiative also comes down to AI, but in three forms: ethical considerations, not too different from what you've already made, content moderation, as well as internet responsible use. Oftentimes when we have such conversation related to technology, we are going to hear terminologies, Internet of Things, blah, blah, blah. But for a person who is looking at internet as a social good and looking at what the theme for International Democracy Day was talking about in relation to AI, and looking at how technology or digital platforms are enablers, there is something that is not very common today, but we call it, instead of Internet of Things, it is called Internet of Rights, because the UN declared digital rights as human rights. So the intersection between what we do in today's changing world of work, or what we do in a daily between our lives and work, is digitally, like literally digitally enabled. So we also have to look at scenarios where we are not going to dismiss the effects of technology, but also appreciating what technology does to us as a daily and as a right to what we do in today's work. And maybe lastly, in regards to this kind of submission, looking at the theme about rebuilding trust, I'll go beyond just media, but looking at it in the time of AI, and how best are we going to live in a world where we live in informed decision. Again, to recall what the lecturer mentioned earlier on, it is upon us as people today, regardless young or old, technology is here to stay. So it is upon you to take it upon yourself, that you align yourself, acquaint yourself with what technology has to offer in terms of information. I always hear people talk about there is so much, a lot of wrong information all over the world. Yeah, people will share information as they wish to. It is upon you to be responsible enough to take in what you must assess in, and also it is a responsibility of maybe people in media to make sure that they inform and debunk and fact check the kind of information that can be both positive or harmful to the society we live in today. Yeah.
Thank you. Just food for thought, hearing Ida speak and hearing Ray speak. I am just asking whether the journalism have actually been able to break down AI in our context, like the reporting on the subject, whether it's actually sufficient for us to go around the issues, because I'm hearing that even us, we need to educate people about the WhatsApp groups and all of these things, and yet I don't know whether journalism has found its way and its full confidence in actually talking about these things. Derek, first of all, you can speak your thoughts, and then you can then maybe Deans can answer to that in one or 2 seconds before I get to the plenary. Get yourself ready if you have any questions.
Thank you, Jan. It's quite interesting. Media houses and media practitioners, journalists are going to be certainly knocked out. It is not the other way around, though, that journalism or journalists or media houses can knock AI out. No, it's just one way. So you either have to deal with it or not, like she has rightly put. Many people who are not journalists, who are not practicing journalism, are going to use AI in their own interests. And the coming election in Uganda is going to be a very, very big challenge for us in the media, practicing active media, because different opponents are going to hurl whatever they want at the other opponents. And it's going to be our role as journalism and as a profession to try to realign some of those things. That means we have to be ahead of all AI people who are using AI, something that I find unfortunately very hard for us, because we have very many people in the media, in our media houses, who edit our stories, and they are very very conservative. They still have the other journalism of typewriting. Yeah, Linda knows them, and she's looking at me.
What is the journalism what is the journalism of typewriting? I mean, for us,
yes,
we don't understand that stuff.
You know,
journalism of typewriting. Some people actually used to send their stories to media houses handwritten, you know, but that has since changed.
And they are the ones at the front line,
many
is that
of
what you're
them
saying?
and many of them are behind our keyboards and editing our stories. It's very hard, it's very challenging, and I know of media houses, NMG, which is trying to equip us with as much information and about AI as possible. I don't know whether the other media houses are doing as much. And I don't actually know whether even Nation Media is doing as much as it should be. And it's going to be a very big challenge for us. So what do we have to do? How do we realign ourselves? These conferences, these trainings must come in very handy now or never, because we're going to fall at a position where candidate A is going to say, I caught candidate B in someone's house stealing something. And the video is going to be there, manufactured, and anyone can believe it. But if we are not equipped with AI as the media, as a media, it's going to be very hard for us to debunk that. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Oh, wow. You're still with us. Thank you so much. Yes. Chip in. Yes.
Yeah. So I think it's important for newsrooms that are adopting AI to see it as a tool, not a replacement for the human touch, because AI still has a long way to go. It's gotten really sophisticated, but it still has a long way to go. And there's a lot of stuff that AI can do that does not need much of a human touch, but it should not be seen as a replacement for journalists. And yes, obviously we have great reason to be concerned about that. But so one thing, it's a tool, but also it's important that every newsroom, that's what it's named, take the time to educate its reporters, its entire newsroom on how to use AI. And guess what? The tools are there, the trainings are there. If you are a newsroom leader right now or an educator in the audience, go and find, Google has a series of trainings. I have taken one of them, and you get a certificate on that, on misinformation and disinformation, and AI, and how to verify the validity of an image and see if a video has been tampered with. Those trainings are there. They are free. You can go find them and take them yourself. But if you're a newsroom leader, you can make those trainings available for your team. But it's very important to carve out time. We're not going back, as we're not going back to the typewriter days. We're not going back to the handwritten stories. We are moving forward. So you can fight it as much as you can, but the realities are everybody should adopt it as one of the many tools. Like we adopted the computer, like we adopted Photoshop. We are going to have to add this to our toolbox, and we're going to have to learn how to use it, and we're going to have to train the newsrooms, invest in training the newsrooms how to do this, and those tools are available and they are free, and you can get a certificate. Who doesn't want a certificate, right?
Wow. What do we do? We go back to Shule, guys, and teach yourself new tricks, because it's here to stay. Thank you so much, Elvina. We allow you to tell us why. We release you into your good morning.
Come apparently.
Thank you so much for your insights, and in case we get any questions coming, we'll give them to you, and we hope we can get answers and share with those who are asking you. But thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to hearing from you in the next Uganda Media Week. Hopefully we shall be in the peak of the elections.
Yes, and you can find, if anybody wants to reach me, you can find me on LinkedIn, Elvina Nawaguna. There's no other Elvina Nawaguna in the world except my niece, and she's not yet at the age to have LinkedIn. So just find me there, and you can send me any questions. My DMs are open. Thank you all. Nice joining you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And I'm out of time, and the whole world is looking at me. What am I going to do? 2 seconds, and 2 seconds it is, right?
Yes, so thank you, Jan. In my 2 seconds, it's very important for us to understand that the role of the personal journalist, you know, the media person, Derek and Ida and everyone in the house still remains important. we have seen over around, I think, 11 or 12 years ago, the Associated Press started the introduction of machine learning using algorithms and supercomputers to help in work in things like editing content and so on and so forth. So production as well as distribution. But with what we are seeing recently, we see a heavy dependence on algorithms. We see issues of ethical gray areas. So as journalists, we need not forget our journalistic or journalism ethics that we studied back in school, even when we are reporting around elections and using AI. But then also the issue of erosion of journalistic integrity due to the lack of depth and reduced editorial oversight. Some of these are the issues we need to understand. Lastly, recently I was consulted by Letitia, the Attorney General of the great state of New York, on two bills that they are working on. One was on algorithmic safety for kids as we headed into the election that just concluded on November 5th, November 6th. It is very important seeing conversations around how social media companies, big tech, Meta, which has its AI, Twitter, which has Grok, and so on, how they are actually holding information, not holding, but holding. They actually don't want us to access how these systems work, how the algorithms work, so that we can audit as journalists before we pick their tools and use them for verifying some of these stories. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. I hear some of these insights, and I feel, as a journalist, I'm challenged. I talked about the conservative person. I believe I'm one of those who still, I am very happy to write my story, type it out, and then I haven't known how to use what's the ChatGPT? I don't know how to use it yet. I still use my head. But I know that these are tools as journalists we need to acquit ourselves with, because even when you move into our newsrooms right now, there's quite a lot that needs to be done. And I hope 2026 finds us in a better place.
Okay, thank you very much. And I have another unpopular opinion in this regard. For me, it's about the states and the government as a whole. So we are talking about Media Week right now and having all this conversation, but I do not see the key players, which is the state. As we speak right now, Uganda, we still have to bypass some of the key platforms that people use as information, for example, Facebook. So for me, in this regard, I'm looking at where do we place the state to call them accountable. When I look at the theme right now, talking about transparency and accountability, where is the state in this particular conversation? Do they know the meaning of why these particular devices and tools and platforms are in place for us to use so that we can enable ourselves, utilize and manipulate their power in disseminating information? And then lastly, as a person and a woman who works in the gender, digital, and technological ecosystem, I'm looking at digital divides, and the gender digital divide. How many women do we have? For example, we're going into electoral processes. 2020, the previous election saw us during COVID time, and we had to leverage technology to enable us to go through the electoral processes and the democracy processes. However, are women well equipped? Even when they're equipped, are they competent enough to look at these, limitations as well as the opportunities there is in this particular ecosystem? We have quite a lot of things that are emerging. Gender-based violence online, technology-facilitated violence, identity theft, fraud, cyber insecurities, and the likes that, threaten people's full potential, but majorly women, because we cannot dismiss the fact that we have a hugest number of people, majorly women, who are not digitally competent and digitally literate. And lastly, in 2 seconds, I'm looking at the state role in shutting down the internet in terms of democratic processes. Can we call them beyond just this particular forum? Censorship is happening. Surveillance is like data privacy and, abuse and misuse of, both as citizens, but again, at the state level. Can we call them to account and be more transparent to make sure that they allow us and enable us to tap into these opportunities that technology has to offer us? Thank you.
Wow, I think we're just scratching the surface of this conversation. It's very multifaceted, but because we are running out of time, with your consent, I am going to ask for at least one person from the plenary to say something. 2 or 3. Madame Rose had put up her hand first, and then, yeah, she was at the back. Um,
You are eating into my time, please. Fortunately, Madam Ida has scratched what was eating me up. Can we hold this conversation of elections and AI and 2026 without talking about the internet shutdown? So my question is, are there strategies? Are we lobbying? Are we trying to convince government that we can't work if the internet is shut down? I was in the situation room of the Uganda Human Rights Commission in the last elections, and we were having actually trouble getting even reports from our observers who were all over the country. And I could imagine what was happening to the media people. People had to transport stories on buses from wherever they were to be reported. So are we putting all our eggs in one basket? That's my question.
okay, food for thought. They will be available to respond to you in the plenary, but yes, let's hear you. I don't want them to answer you because we'll run out of time.
Okay. So for me, rejoinder on what Rosemary is saying. One, tomorrow, everyone who has a blog, a newspaper, a radio station, or a place where you speak, do this. Make sure the story, the headline is digital rights are human rights. Shut down the internet, you've violated human rights. Let's do this story until 2026. Let's have the conversation and don't kill it until everybody has heard and understood that this too is a violation of human rights. Now, the second thing that I thought I could say is first, courts need to rethink the use of AI, because in the process of gathering evidence after the elections, one of the things is going to be the information that was infiltrated into the process and without checking AI. Thirdly, if everyone has a phone, you do check if you have Meta AI on your phone. Some people have not used that tool at all. They do not know it even exists. Tell you what, even as I talk right now, it's gathering information. And without my consent, and without me knowing that it's there. So this is the reality for where we are. Except you put your phone in flight mode, AI will pick the information it wants and will transform it for the people that want to pick it up. I thank you.
You know, I think even in flight mode, it's probably picking it up. Let's have just Pius, that goes with us as well. I think you've been following the question very well. Just to, you're so old and relevant to these people that it would be only, and I say this with the utmost respect, that as a veteran, all of your decades of wisdom might be good to shed some insights on what you have had here today, and then we'll go into our last panel. So I hope everyone knows who Pius is. So can we have Mike just go over to Pius and we'll hear from him, and then we'll introduce our final panel.
Thank you so much for those kind comments. My name is Pius Katunzi. I'm South Observer newspaper. I would like to thank the panelists and also for the opportunity to say something. I've had so many worries about AI. It appears that everyone is worried about AI. I'm not worried myself. I've used some of the tools to actually use AI just like any other tool. Once in the 90s, we used to type our stories, submit them to the editors. And the editors used to have scissors. So the first paragraph is okay, but the second paragraph is not okay. Oh, so, and if the entire story, those days they call them folios. And so they say how many folios I've written, like how many pages I've written. 2 folios. If a thing held trash, you took it to a man like Charles Onyango, just crammed it. Now, these days, when people talk about AI, they mainly talk about generative AI. But AI is involved in so many things. We use AI, for instance, to find out which stories are most read on our websites. We can use AI to, and that's distribution, to find out which better distribution channels. So for me, the advice I'd like to give to the journalists is that how can journalists cope with AI? You just have to basically to be critical thinking. And this critical thinking involves, number one, understand the technology, like somebody talked about it already. Familiarize yourself. Take time to learn how AI tools work, including their strengths, limitations. There are so many foundational courses online, Google and what. Stay updated, regularly engage developments in AI and technology to understand how capabilities and potential pitfalls. And also, don't forget, this is one of the skills that all journalists have. Always be skeptical. It's good to take a skeptical approach to AI, especially with the heavy content that will be coming during elections. The audience will rely on us to shift for them the right information. So, if we who are supposed to sieve this information are not updated with AI tools, are not updated with all these pitfalls, then we would have done a big service to the audience. Finally, I think we have to maintain some editorial oversight. And that means that we have to ensure the AI tools are used as aids rather than replacement for humans. And also, we need to understand that some people have been saying that AI is going to kill creativity. I don't believe that. Instead, it's going to actually enhance creativity. For instance, if you're creative enough, you can't write a very creative prompt, which will give you some. And even after that, I hope everybody knows what a prompt is. Even after that, when you get that content, you have to use your human mind to check, again to fact check, and also check whether the thing, really what you're giving is the right thing or not. So for me, I'm not worried, and I'm just happy that we have these tools. And if we use them well, the people will continue trusting them. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Pius. Unfortunately, I have to sort of go to the next session. But how many people here know what a folio is? So what I was saying about Pius, yeah, Rose, naturally, you're a dinosaur like Pius, so that's expected. It's very interesting how far things have moved. A big thank you to our panel. Derek, please never say anywhere again in public that you don't know how to use ChatGPT. We shall excuse it for today, but never again should you be ever had to say you don't know what ChatGPT, how it works. And homework for you, I need you to go and learn. That thing is incredible. I wish we had time. It would have been to do an actual live demo of how AI works. But you have, okay, so can you be able to do that? Can they set up something for us on one of, I'm sure you have subscriptions to like all the AI tools. Is it possible for us to do a live demo with like 2 of them later on? Do you think it would be possible? Yeah, because it would be really good for you guys to see what AI can do. There's a particular one called Love Marketing, which I would recommend that you go and check out. That if you want to create any sort of communication, it can do a full advert for you. If you want to do, for example, Juliet is not here. If you want to do electoral democracy content, you can tell it to create videos with a black woman and a disabled African man in a village in Kanungu, and it will pick that stuff and do a full video with a Uganda accent. That's how ridiculous AI has now become, and you can actually be able to do that, and it will show you exactly what you want to do. And I think the one thing that Pius mentioned that is extremely critical is that issue of prompting. AI is simply a tool that does
Stimulate.
what you tell it to do.
Yeah.
So if you don't have the brain, it's just like you trying to get a 5-year-old and put them in a car and say drive to Kampala. They won't have any idea what to do. So that's the power behind AI and how it retains our creativity. So big thank you to our panel. We'll excuse them and give
Can
them
I
a
ask
big
one
hand clap.
question?
Yeah.
To the hosts, do we have interpreters here?
Do we have Yeah. Where is Hope? So we do have
Yeah.
Hope who's been with us. And
Okay, I just wanted to be certain that we are being very inclusive,
Yes,
because
we
if
are.
you have these kinds of
we are ahead of
conversations
you,
there.
please. We are switched
Sir
on.
Kwesi, thank you.
We are in the class at the front. In fact, we are next to the teacher. Our final session. So we will have a lightning talk on personal branding that Joan will do together with Irene, but that will be after our final session, which is going to be a very short one. It will just basically be some insights from Abbas Mpindi, who is our host. Doesn't need any introduction. Please give him a big hand clap. For feeding us well, I've put on about 2 kilos since yesterday. So between Jan and Abbas, they owe me gym money. Also, Idris Chigundu, of course, Beg Media, who has been extremely active, never shy to share his thoughts and opinions, and had a proper go at Marcella yesterday. That was typical Idris yesterday. It was good to see you in your element, and you're very welcome. And then the final person that I'm going to introduce, so our final panelist is so special to me that I want to introduce her in a very special way. And I'm going to do that by first asking, is there anyone in this room who does not know who Christine Mawadri is? If you're here and you don't know who Christine Mawadri is, please put up your hand. And if you're Ugandan and you are, the Tanzanians don't count. So we need anyone who is here in the room and you don't know who Christine Mawadri is. So Mercy doesn't know, No doesn't know, Irene, you're lying. Okay, so there's about 3 people who don't know. And that for me is a problem because Christine is a true national treasure. And I'll ask her to come to the platform even as I give her the glowing introduction I want to. Back in the 90s, when the very first radio stations opened in Uganda, we were used to very boring radio. And then the FM radios came. And then there was this radio show where there was this woman who spoke so well that you just always drew pictures of your head. Anyone who is above 35 knows what I'm talking about. Even 35, because the 35s were just almost there. But the reason why, for me, Christine is really special, and I've said this in public many times, and I never stop sharing this testimony anywhere where I am with her, is that anything that I became as an individual in my profession is because of this woman here. When she was at Capital FM back in about 96, 97, I used to listen to the radio show every single day. At some point, she banned me from calling because I would win all of the money. And so she said, Ben, you need to stop calling because people are going to start thinking we're colluding with you. But then she did one thing for me. She said, I told her I want to be on radio. And there was a guy called Hussein, Amin's son. And yeah, and she said, come. She grabbed my hand. I'd gone to pick money that I had won. And she dragged me into the production studio and handed me to Hussein Mumba and said, this boy keeps stressing me. Here he is. And I did a commercial for Oktoberfest for Nairobi. I'll never forget. And that was my very first voiceover to do. And after that, I ended up being on radio thanks to her and Irene Ocho, who was head of programming at Radio 1 at the time. And the rest, as they say, is history. So I literally owe her my career. And so I always make sure that this comes out whenever I am with her. And as long as you're alive and I'm alive and I'm with you, I will share that story every single time. Let's talk about media viability and the new frontiers for media sustainability and innovations. It would be a very brief conversation to talk about where we have come from, where we are, and where we're going, And again, these guys are here to just share some insights, and then we'll hear from you. I'll start with Idris. You're one of the dinosaurs. Unfortunately for him, the gray beard gives it away. He can't hide it.
I'm not.
You grew up as a journalist in literally the most archaic newsroom you can imagine. If you think, let's be honest.
Actually, by the time I joined journalism, the computers had come.
Running Windows what?
I don't know, Windows.
Yeah, did you use Netscape? Did you use Yahoo?
Windows XP.
Well, who here knows Windows XP? Yeah? You see, that is how old we are. Things have changed a lot. Let's start from there. When you consider what media was like back in the 90s and the very early 2000s, and where we are now, what would you say for you has been the most stark development in terms of the acceleration of, you say the technology or delivery or whatever? What has been the biggest change in media from the time you joined, from the perspective of sustainability and innovation for the profession?
Thank you, Ben. I think once again I should introduce myself. I'm Idris Chigundu from Beg Media. Of course, I'm honored to sit with two great people. She's my origin primary, by the way, but by two different eras, yeah? We went to the same primary school. Abbas, I've followed. She didn't know. We went to a school called Uganda Road.
Well, the parking
Those
lots.
days.
We used to
Yeah.
go to Uganda Road, the parking lot, because they had no grass.
But the eras are different. So
I was in Nakasero, so.
So I'm glad to be here. You asked a very important question. What do I think is the most important development in whether it's innovation as far as media development and sustainability is concerned? Of course, one is technology. When you look at the technology, the way technology has grown, when you look at the kind of, I remember when I entered journalism, writing a story, of course the computers were there, but there is a program that they used to use to put together a graphical, I've forgotten its name, and we used to use flash disks to carry stories. A flash disk was a small compact thing. I think one wouldn't even carry a photograph of 5 megabytes, if I'm not mistaken. And certainly internet.
What was it? Floppy? I think you meant floppy disk.
Yeah, a floppy. Yeah.
Flash disk
No.
is recent.
No, yeah, it was a floppy disk.
A floppy disk.
And then it could malfunction very fast depending on how we used to keep them in papers. You get a paper and then you wrap it. Because if you expose them to just a small thing of dust but it was a precious thing. I remember even, it was like the cassette tapes. They had a paper even writing your name that you owned this in the newsroom. But then when you look at, and then yet the capacity was very, very small, but was a precious thing.
Sorry, Idris, again, I like to give context. Is there anyone here who has never used a floppy disk? Show of hands. If you have never used a floppy disk. All right, about 70% of the room, so context.
Yeah, actually all the CPUs had that section for floppy disks, but when you look today, they don't have them. But even the entire process of gathering news, at the time we entered journalism, the mobile phone penetration was not as deep as it is today. So getting a public official, either you had to have we had diaries of phone numbers of the ministers, and the 0414. It's not like today where if you want to get a comment from someone, you just dial them. And sometimes it involved you going physically there to their offices if you want to get a comment from a commissioner in this kind of thing. But with advancement in technology and, email, mobile phone, even WhatsApp. I think now it's easier for a journalist to access their sources. But also, Ben, one of the biggest developments in the media as far as technology is concerned, I think, is social. If I could say the social media and the social media platforms and the fact that now it's easier to bring in the general public into what we do. Previously, there was a kind of a thick wall between the journalists and the. I remember the first time I saw Toya Kilama, I think on Kampala Road, there used to be a restaurant called Cariport. I used to watch Toya Kilama on UBC.
UTV.
On UTV. The first time I saw him was around 1989. I was in P2. And I was walking from school from Uganda Road. And there used to be a restaurant called Cariport before you reach, I think, Shell. So I saw him, I think he had gone to eat food, and there was that big, sometimes of a. But I think today that wall is no longer there. I think when you look at the way, when you look at like X, you write, you are so, and then people respond to you and even attack you. You see you're working for government. You are deceiving us. You saw there's that. How many people knew that they could interact even with the president on WhatsApp like that?
Yeah.
Or a minister, you get it.
On now, you can actually have a conversation.
So
with
I
the richest
think
man in the world.
citizen journalism and that acceleration, I think, is one of the things.
So I know sometimes you pretend a little bit and then things hit you hard in the face. So I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, but okay, you're old. And then he's saying that he met Toya Kilama in 1989 when he was in P2, and I was in P7 at the time, so I'm wondering what to say about myself. Also, Benson, thank you so much for pointing out something very interesting. So if you go to your laptop on your computer, whenever you're going to save a file, the icon for saving a file on your computer is actually the image of a floppy disk. And the reason was that at that time, the computers almost had little memory. You would only be able to save the file onto the floppy disk to be able to move it around. When it would take you 25 minutes to actually log into your email. Christine, just picking up from where Idris has stopped, again, from your perspective, because I want us to be able to just quickly lay a foundation of where we have come from, and then Abbas is able to bring it home to, does it even really matter that we have come that far to where now things are, and then where are they going? How much has changed? Because you've stayed in the industry, you know, all of these years. How different are things now from what they were in 1993? Yeah.
Wow. First of all, I'm very honored to be here. And thank you for that amazing intro. Sometimes I forget things that I do. And thank you for reminding me from time to time that I need to come and collect.
You need to. I owe you.
Okay, so nice to be on this panel. Mr. Chikundu, Abbas. These are, when I hear their profiles, I feel comfortable that I'm sitting in the right place with the right people. Media Week, thank you for having us here. Okay, so let me dive into it. As he's probably told you, Ben, I've been in the media for 30 years. 30 years, yeah. 30 years means, yeah, since the beginning of introduction of FM radio.
Who here is below 30, age-wise? Please put up your hand. If you're younger than 30 years, please put up your hand. All right, about half the room.
Yeah, so please gather around and listen to the stories.
Some of them were conceived to your shows.
Probably. Oh, anyway, so, you know, you asked me a question and I was just playing, you know, like how very quickly, you know, all these images of where we started, the beginning of internet, right through to where we are right now. And I may as well introduce myself. At the moment, I am the ED for Strategic Partnerships at NRG Radio. NRG Radio is a youth-centric station. We are very big on new media, if you like, and I think we're shaking tables.
You definitely are.
So when you asked me this question, it took me back to where I have been. And you talked about floppy disks, we used cards. literally when you are on air, you're using cuts while talking, sounding as sexy as you can, while moving around music and moving cuts so that it's smooth. And I tell you, there was no dead air. That's how good we were. So when I juxtapose this to what is now, like, what a nice time to be broadcasting.
Yeah.
You know, I wish sometimes those were days that I was there. We'll probably do many things. So we came from cuts and we moved to internet. I used internet when it just started. We're using the dial thing.
Sorry, just to sort of interject. So it might seem very basic to you, but for especially a lot of these youngins, I think you need to take them through. So cuts wasn't the only thing. There was a whole progression.
Well,
Cuts,
those
mini
cuts,
discs,
mini discs,
CDs.
CDs. Oh wow! Does anyone know what a CD is besides the condom?
Yeah, I don't know what a mini disc is.
Do you know what a mini disc is?
Who knows what a mini disc is? Yeah, well, Pius, we expect, yeah. So, and Linda, and maybe Rose would probably have an idea
Yep.
what a Marantz was. I think
I
Linda
tell you.
would remember the Marantz. I remember when we were searching FM with Linda, she had her biggest asset was a small recorder. Of course,
That
it was
one.
big, it was like a briefcase.
That one.
Called the
And
Marantz.
then it
so-
was probably about 5 kilos.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, but it was precious. If you lost that one, you're done. So the mini disc was also quite small. It's what you'd use, you'd really equate to your hard drive right now. So we moved from that to CDs, which was a bit of a relief. And then, voila, someone decided that radio stations should have playback computerized systems. And that was music to our ears. So we have seen all that. And right now we are talking about media and innovation and sustainability. Allow me to interject something. You know, when John looked me up and said, we need you to talk about this, there's some thread that just lingers all the way from the time that media houses, the FM station started, to now. And it's quite disturbing because data collection and research are very important. They're very important because they help you or any investors or any, meaningful entities decide which direction to take. So right now, we are really at almost the apex, if you like, of digital technology and all that. We have social media doing its thing. I've heard about AI. By the way, I love AI. I have no clue. And all these things are going on, but nobody, and let me just say this, we have over 300 media houses in this country. We're talking about TV stations, radio stations, and any other, online newspapers and all that. But the thing is, you've got this huge investment capital here, talking to people, different people. But the line in between there, who exactly are you talking to? What exactly do they want to hear and do they want to hear? Are they even getting what you are telling them? Or are we just, in the dark, set up a station, set up a media entity, and someone said that it will make money, and that's it? This is very critical because I think there's a way that we've been duped in not thinking that data collection, research, or a way forward to know what your audience is saying is important. I mean, if you really look, how many data collection tools we have? One. Who? That one. So we only have that one. And we are depending on this one to give us all the research we need. Research for brands to say where to put their products, research to say what lifestyle that, our audience is doing, research to tell us whether a brand is expired or it should be off the shelf or not. That research, which comes only twice in a year. Twice in a year. Am I saying something here?
Yeah.
Guys, it's dire.
You remember Nigeria's reviews of radio stations in the late 90s, how people used to wait for them in Daily Monitor?
Yeah.
and as a big judgment on how they are doing?
Absolutely, because it was important for investors, for audiences, for everyone to know, even brands to know where to place, to pair. But right now, so
what happened to Steadman?
We shall not name them.
We are not going to we are not mentioning next today.
But I think I mean, look, the point gets driven home so strongly, and it's something that I think we've struggled a lot with, where you have to wait 6 months. Sometimes.
Yeah.
For someone else to decide for you that you're worthy of being given business, and yet in those 6 months, you've probably been the best thing that has been happening in the industry the entire time.
And this is where my pain point is, if I may. While this is going on, digital media is slowly creeping in. The Gen Zs are saying, guys, as we are moving on, okay? And then as we're left holding the bag on the other end with old traditional technology and that one entity which has helped us to give us data that we depend on, and things are flying off, they're going off the other way. I did a research with Gen Zs about 2 years ago, and I was shocked to find out that they don't listen to radio stations. And I said, okay, what about TV? I don't listen to TV. I'm like, okay, so what do you do? And I said, I game and I game. And I said, so, okay, where do you get, if you need any news or information? Then Twitter is very simple. That time it's Twitter. I just go there, see what's going on, look at the little video they put in Parliament, and move on. Look at the jury, the judge, everybody, and everyone had something to say. So yeah, and they just move on. So this is the thing. If we're going to talk about innovation and sustainability, in what regard?
So. And that's the thing. So let me bring it up I guess, because I was having a chat with someone yesterday over the lunch break about this, about, again, sustainability and viability. It's a conversation we have every year. But one of the things that came out strongly was you have media houses, right? Like the one I work for at the moment, which has 500 and something people, the newsroom, for which it is pretty much built alongside some people, that has, I don't know what, 140, 150 people who have to spend their entire day trying to put together a 25-minute bulletin. And then on the other hand, you've got MCI. You have 2 kids who you send out in the morning, they hang out with those other guys and be able to produce pretty much a same bulletin with about 10% of the resource required. Sure.
Donate.
Right? From again, so from where you've seen this going with your training journalists and all of that, you just get the sense that, as Kristen is saying, we can't keep doing things the way we've been doing them and expect to survive as a media house, right?
And now AI has come. You
And
see
now
the way
AI is
digital
also
came?
now,
Digital media came and removed the rag from everybody under
Yeah.
everybody's feet.
Yeah.
Now AI is here. And you might find that with a bit of probing, research, innovation, you might find you don't need all that stuff. You just need AI. Just saying. Just saying.
Thank you, Ben. So I just want to start by sharing one framework. That's this idea that media can only be viable if the community it serves is economically and socially and literate, viable enough to consume quality journalism. So there's an icon on social media platforms which is the sharing icon. That icon is very powerful. So when you talk about young Gen Zs are not watching TV, they're not listening to radio. So the question is, how are they getting it's referral, right? And the power of the sharing button. Is your story interesting, fun, and useful enough for a young person to share it in groups? And it's not just a young person, but it's everyone else out there. Because one, the question that we have to ask ourselves, that a lot of things seem to have changed, you know, technology, talking about consumption behavior, but again, what people are looking for really hasn't changed, which is to be educated, to be entertained, and to have very useful information that can help them to make the best decisions. So if I come to your platform, and also what we've lost as an industry is the exclusive and monopoly of being the first to break the news. So if I can find all that information anywhere, there has to be a reason why I come to your platform. And that reason has to be, are you educating me? Am I able to make proper judgment because of the information I'm getting? Am I able to use this information and make my community better? Am I able to laugh and just like crack and have like, so those things are fundamentals. They haven't really changed. But what has happened is the disruption that a lot other people out there can do those things. And that's why you say people are on TikTok, but that's because those platforms, millions of people are providing that motivation for a young person to join those. So we have to answer that. And then when we talk about media viability, of course, for me, I argue that we're not just looking at a media that is viable, we're also looking at the community that is viable. And the reason is, if the community is still struggling with basic needs, they will struggle to subscribe, because first food, second shelter, and then, you know, information. And so we have to think about, one, the place of the media in enabling communities to become viable themselves. So there is a conversation that has to happen on local journalism, which is why I came with this for you, Ben. And also,
I hope that means you handed it over.
It is a viability component you have to buy. We sell them. So the community has to appreciate the value of Next Media, the value of NTV in their lives. And so way back, there would be, you know, radio stations that are really connected with the community. They are doing development programs, and people in the community would say, that's our radio station. And we need to get back to that level where people see, young people say, that's our media platform. Why? Because there are these three reasons why we go there. And we still have an opportunity around trust, which is really important. Yes.
Yeah, so again, I just have one more question for you guys, and then we'll open it up. Again, the idea is just to sort of lay the ground for the conversation. In light of all of this, I started with Idris, we'll come to Christian and then finish with the bus. How do you then set up your media house or a channel, whatever, as a business in this current town, while still yet being relevant, right? While still being able to adhere to the ones you're talking about the capability, information, being able to be. For me, really, to me, it's relevant. So how do you do that in all of this space and still manage to stay afloat as an entity? Because saying, advertisers are saying, my money is now shifting to digital. I think, if I'm not mistaken,
and that is perhaps.
That is perhaps. Coca-Cola as an entity, just in case you don't know, has shifted 60% of their advertising budget now to digital. So while before they would take all of their money and put it on After Five and the Beat and whatever, big chunk of that money is now going to digital platforms. That means that revenue is going for your media house. So for big media now, in the space in which now you're trying to enter, how do you make yourself a going concern that is able to stay alive? Well, yeah, how do you get that 60%?
Yeah.
For him is on the 60 side.
That's a nice question, Ben. I won't differ so much from what Christian and Abbas have said. I think where the media is, we have to look at niche journalism. Big media is so strong on media, that's very deliberate. We are so strong on covering our media counterparts. Because one of the things we have discovered is there are a lot of so many people actually are interested in understanding what the goings on in the media, but the media rarely covers it. So the media in Uganda doesn't cover it. So they can report about, well, corruption in police, or they can talk about mistreatment of workers at an Indian factory. No media company will ever say that our workers have gone 6 months without pay, or we have a boss who sexually harasses this. Okay, I can understand why that has been the case. The media in Uganda has some unwritten pact that you see, some of these things should be kept inside. There should be bedroom matters. But then the question, the answer is that I think the world is the media has to finish. The same way energy targets youth. The days of mass media thinking that you can target each and every, the way the first newspapers were set up, the way the television stations are set up in this country, I think because of the segmentation of our audiences, those days are gone. Abbas was talking about, and I think you're talking about and part of the reason why they are gone is because there are so many alternatives now. In 1990, in 1990, 89, you had no alternatives. You had to watch UTV. There were no alternatives. Internet wasn't there. You had to either listen to Radio Uganda and watch UTV. Now there are so many alternatives. But largely also because of the growth in technology and social media. Now, which means that you can't pretend to serve all the entire market now. I know radio stations, TV stations have tried to do that before, having a segment on health, then on politics, then on business and that. But where the world is, if I set up, like, I see the Smart 24, sorry if I'm pushing that, like, that's where the world is going, where someone will just tune to a TV or tune into a radio knowing that I expect this kind of music, this kind of, yes. So, just for and when you become an expert, or when you become solidified in that kind of niche, advertisers are going to come. I don't know whether you follow global trends. The BBCs, the CNNs are losing people to podcasts. Podcast companies in Europe, in Uganda, they come because they are paying much more money. There's a podcaster, you know him, Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan is more popular, has more viewership than CNN and ABC combined. It's just
and ABC, you can actually combine about 4 media houses and
he has, when he goes on there's no show on CNN, whether it's by which will have more viewers than the listenership of Joe Rogan, the guy who interviewed Trump in the world. And that shows you the shifting consumer trends that sometimes if we tapped into them, maybe that's the way we can survive and sustain ourselves. But this thing of thinking that you're going to serve each and every one, I think that era is over. Even me, if I want to read the sports, I'll go to Athletic. If I want to get an understanding, Sam Lugambo, I go to Kasuku. If I want to YouTube, if I want to get an understanding on politics, I go to a platform that I think serves me that interest. And that's what the youth, and that's why you see youth who are interested in gaming, like you said, youth who are interested in things to do with love and relationships, will also get their platforms.
It's interesting you should mention the example of the Athletic, because it's a very new concept. And when they started, we were thinking subscription only best, and yet they're thriving. They're actually very profitable because they found a niche and managed to take it well. For the context of all our sub-30s, you hear these dinosaurs talking about this stuff, and it seems.
Please, can you replace that with icons?
Icons, okay, legends. legendary icons. I need to give you perspective to understand exactly how things were. Back in 1992, 91, 92, when we had only one TV channel called UTV and one radio called Radio Uganda. Well, there are two radios because in the evening between 5 and 7, depending on the weather, you would be able to pick up KBC radio. There's a guy called Bob Kioko who used to run a show called Sandana. And so if you were lucky and the weather was perfect, you would be able to pick KBC radio using medium wave. So you would listen to half
the top 10 countdown.
You'd listen to half the song and then the other half would disappear. There was one show that did music on Radio Uganda done by a guy called Mike Aderenge, DJ Mosquito.
And then there was, what's his name?
And
Arnold.
Yeah.
Mulondo. No, Richard Mulondo.
Richard Mulondo.
Yeah.
And that was it. All of your music was normally about 3 months old if you are lucky. So these things of a song has been released now and then you're going to get it, you will get it 3 months later. That's how things were. And they've changed since. So based on that, from what, it is talking about niching and specialization. From your perspective now, from the component of innovation, what do you see as being the biggest things for people to take away from? With the understanding that many of these young people here are now thinking much bigger than just being able to go and get a job. Many of them are entrepreneurs. They have dreams and they set up their own podcasts, platforms, whatever. What would be the 2 or 3 things you would give them as advice if it's going to give them a shot at actually being able to succeed, and then we'll wrap it up with a class and then kick some doors?
So the panel that was here before, I think it was Raymond, who said something that's very close to me, which is finding African solutions for Africa. That's the number one thing. And it ties into what Abbas was saying, that, how is it we start, intentionally getting content around communities, around interests. That is the one thing that the Gen Zs should think about. First of all, Africa, and the solution. Now, the solution can come in various ways. One, you need to understand that you have a lot to work with, and that is content. Whether we want it or not, content will always be king or queen. Are we agreeable to this?
Yeah.
Because even if there are a gazillion platforms out there, they are all saying the same thing. They are all churning out content. And that share button you talked about, that one in itself tells you that content is here to stay. So you already have capital to work with, okay? The next thing that I would say is start to be intentional about who exactly you want this content to go to. And that is where the innovation starts. I personally have started actually building a media research tool, because I said, okay, we're going to make noise about this, that, and the other. I've started to build it, and I realized that, okay, it's not easy actually for everyone to do this. But along the way, I'm learning that, yeah, there are parts that I will do, and I'll also leave someone else to plug in. So you're not just a one-man show thinking that you're going to save the world. Not likely. So those are the
collaboration now becomes extremely
exactly. So the one thing, remember, African solutions for Africa. 2, you already have material to work with, which is content. It's there. But how do you want to use it? 3, how do you plug it to a specific audience? Because they are, and very quickly, there is one particular topic that I don't know we are doing enough about, and yet we should, and that is the environmental aspects, climate change, and things like that. Oh, really? How did I even know?
Yeah.
So
we had a very good conversation.
It's a very big thing, and it's if we're going to shape culture for the Gen Zs and those coming after them, it's something that we should. It's a topic, not even just a topic. It is a concern that we should hold close to us, because if you look at news generally, you say, okay, let me listen to a news bulletin. Anything about the environment will show up maybe like in other news.
Yeah.
And yet we are facing serious problems. You see what happened to Chitezi. Today on my way here, I was asking, by the way, where's the garbage going to lately? Nobody's saying.
Oh, yeah.
It's saying.
It's a bit- yeah.
Our pollution index is high up there.
Yeah.
And we cannot expect the government to do everything for us.
Yeah.
How is if we also start to do stuff on our own? And that's where the innovation comes.
So from what I'm hearing so far from Christine and Idris, again, combining both of your things, you're talking about content, he's talking about specialization. What I'm thinking is if you're in the room and you're thinking about what I want to do with Comfort or Massive, whether you guys are still young, you have a lot of potential. What area do you cut out as your niche, especially for your peers, to be able to then consume? Because we have a very young population. They're growing into this
Actually, we
content.
have one of the fastest growing populations in the world.
And they are going to be consumers of this content. Again, before Abbas closes it, I like to have things around perspective and context. How many people here watch Netflix? Show of hands. Yeah, okay, okay, how many people here pay for Netflix? Yeah. Pay for Netflix. Oh, still a very good, a very decent chunk. From my estimation, I'm thinking about 35% or thereabouts, right? You pay for it because the content is good, right? There's enough content. So if the content is good, you're going to pay for it. I'll give you one very basic example. I don't know if you ever think about this, but the richest people in this country are the ones who sell the cheapest thing. Think about it. The richest people in this country are the ones who sell the cheapest thing. How much is a plastic cup? See, it's increased now to 500. Yeah?
How much is a safety pin?
How much is the chikwasu? Right? 100 to 200. How much is a handkerchief? It's increased to 1K now. Please note it has increased. And yeah, and the point I'm trying to make is this, ladies and gentlemen, that even the poorest of the poor people in this country will find a way to go and spend money on a hanky, on a matchbox, on a safety pin, on a plastic cup for a home. But because of how things are going now, and because all of them in the next few years are going to have access to internet, my boss likes to say that in 5 years, internet will be like water. When MTN came in 97, yeah, 97, Celtel 96, MTN 97, right? 95 actually, end of 95 to 96. We had to pay these things called service fee cards to be able to be allowed to access the network. So even before you bought airtime, I'm sure Pius probably has copies of his service card somewhere in his bedroom, the old ones, and Rose. The way Rose is laughing, I'm sure she kept some souvenirs, and Irene, right? And then that now got taken away because you had access to the network, but then had to buy airtime, okay? Eventually the airtime went away now. I spend 20,000 shillings a month on my voice call. I get a bundle that allows me to call all networks. Before, calling from MTN to MTN was cheap. Calling from MTN to Airtel would be expensive. They've now removed that. Today, I don't know if you are aware, but today morning, MTN, what's that? Quadruple is times 4. Times 5 is what? Quintuple. No, what's on the Zoom? MTN today contributed, that's scary, a fake word. MTN today increased times 5 the amount of data they are offering for the same amount of money. I don't know if you know that. Today. What that means is that in 5 years' time, the internet will be pretty much free. Which means that this person in the village now has all the internet, and they're able to spend that 600 shillings a week on content, if your content is good enough. Again, perspective for me in terms of where we're going. So, Abbas, bring it home.
Thank you, Ben. I think you provide very good perspective, because what I was going to say is that people go to Netflix not because the content is just good, but it's curated very well. And if you go on that platform, you can see It's easy to navigate. It's categorized. You can find your way around it, the content easily. So curation becomes a good area for young people to innovate, but also for media fraternities to think about how curating niched content becomes strategic for them to become viable. And again, viable is a very, complex term. Reason being, it's more than just the money. It's you have the capacity to keep the lights on. You have the capacity to send your journalists to do not just any form of journalism, but really have journalists who can do quality journalism. And that means the way you curate that content has to align with the needs of the community. And that brings me to this idea that content is not just king, but it will also be a basic need soon. And that we as journalists, we can make content a basic need. And people can see it, especially if our content aligns with the needs of the people and their demands. So you're looking at media viability from a supply side, but you also have to look at it from a demand side. And that's why I said, and I would repeat again, that a viable media is only viable if the community is equally viable, and that the media can play a huge role in making communities viable. So first, you as journalists, you have to understand that you are partners in development and growth, and that communities have to see us as partners in development and growth. And that with that, communities have interest in not only defending the media and journalists, but they also have interest in investing in the same media platforms that we run. And for our young journalists, what is key around innovating, you need to understand that it's not just content. You can become an innovator around distribution of other people's content, right? There was a guy who was saying he could use, instead of having Daily Monitor and New Vision and Observer running their own fleets, he could have one fleet that takes everything to the different regions. So innovations don't have to be tech. Innovations can be in distribution, innovation can be in access and making it easy for young people to get that content. Innovation can be in how they use it and reuse it all the time. So it's just, you have a lot of options.
I certainly like, for example, Christine's innovation around research, because that's something that's absolutely relevant.
Yes, research as well.
You remember there's a time, I think about 6 or 7 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, where the telcos were struggling with their costs until ATC came in and said, but why are you setting up 5 different masks to serve the same community?
Yeah.
We will do the mast. You guys will rent. We'll cut your costs each by 60, 70%. I still make a lot of money because I'm aggregating this for you. It's a win-win-win-win-win. You're able to expand, you're able to give better services. So what innovation are you thinking about? One of my challenges with Ugandans, and especially our young people, and I'm trying not to be offensive, but we don't seem to want to think, right?
Think it's not yet illegal.
Yeah, thank you, Abbas. Please repeat that.
Think it's not yet illegal.
It's not,
no one is going to arrest you for thinking.
It's not illegal for you to think. For any Ugandan who is below the age of 30, for me, under no circumstances should you be aspiring to be Christine's employee or my employee, especially if you're in this media space. Your aspiration should be to become the next Mr. Beast, the next Marcus Brownlee. We all know who Marcus Brownlee is, right? Maybe Rose doesn't. I don't expect Rose to. Rose, do you know who Marcus Brownlee is? I don't expect you to know. Who knows who Marcus Brownlee is? Yeah, okay. So he's a young kid who started making all these videos, reviewing technology on YouTube as a 17-year-old, and now he's a multi-millionaire, almost approaching a billionaire. So What are you doing to take advantage of this leveling playing field that has been made available to you? Right. Let's get some feedback from you guys. Any additions to what the panel is suggesting in terms of where we need to go for sustainability and viability?
Ben, maybe
for-
there's just one thing
for the media?
around what Idris talked about when we talk about the need to niche audiences. But there's also the need to just niche the advertisers. Because not all of us are going to Coca-Cola. And even Coca-Cola is looking for certain audiences in their own way. Even if they said this is, you know, we are putting all our 60% to, but they still want, you know, the youth. And she can provide that group very well. So even if you're starting, if you are focusing on mental health, like Nabu Guzi there and her podcast, strong minds should be the people that you become friends with rather than running after, you know, I won't say that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're spot on about that, right? Any key learnings? Anything that has stood out from you from what our legendary icons? So we shouldn't call them dancers. So our legendary icons. So Pius, we'll start from Pius. Mercy, we'll come to Mercy. Anyone else? And then we'll go over there to the corner. One more person? Okay, so we'll do those three, and then we'll hear about personal branding before we close.
Thank you, Ben. I'd like to thank also the panelists. Christine, it's good to see you. It's been a while. I just wanted to add a comment on what Abbas said. Actually, he read my mind. That in order for the media to be viable, we need to have a viable community. You gave an analogy of buying safety pins, being affordable, and the people who sell them rich. It's right at that. Problem with things which are affordable. For instance, when somebody buys a safety pin, you
I
take
think your mic is, I don't know if it's the way, is your mic a bit lower than mine? Yeah.
Okay, you hear me now?
No, use mine. I think yours is a bit low.
Thank you. The problem with buying things like which are affordable like safety pins is that the owners will keep them forever. Now just imagine if we make newspaper subscription very affordable. Someone will buy. If it doesn't renew after that. So if there was a way where all the print media would agree to premium, them give free. So if the print media would agree rising premium full page yet, and even audience for the video get the bit of many of us are even how to split revenue. We talk about someone being common transport distributor. That's the thing about the expansion of people. Still find it hard. I was in UK as a student. Discovered that Big Street because it was the place where they printed all newspapers.
Yeah.
It was Big Street which was distributed. Because starting points were the same.
Yeah.
So the market timing.
Yeah.
So I think that it educates yes. Journalism. Expensive.
Yeah.
Asking questions like what happened.
Stedman. Yeah. Ipsos. Yeah.
Problem also with such sometimes tailor-made research. I personally, one time, they wrote something, and I wrote critical review of the research.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to point out, because if, for instance, you merge, selling salt, then merge that concept. Go to a place X, you give somebody salt. And tell somebody, if you want to get this, as you said, listen, radio one.
Yeah.
So, need to also bear in mind that you don't produce stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you very much. Let's come here to Mercy. I've actually just got an idea, Christine. I've always thought to myself that the thing of media research is so important that maybe someone like UCC should take interest in it. So once you've done with this tool, maybe you should have a conversation with UCC and say, look, this is something for public good, where in the licensing regime for every radio station, when you're getting your license, there's a component that's dedicated to making sure that there's a component of having audience, research available, which would then come to you as an entity to provide as a public good. I think that's something that
I like the fact that you raised this.
Yeah.
I think, Abbas, is the last time we were here when we had the media challenge. Yeah. And there's something that I talked about and I touched it lightly. Most times when people listen or hear about the regulator, they sit up like, my God, they're coming to shut me down, or they're giving me a warning or something. I think we need to start looking also at policymakers as part of us.
Correct.
You see? Because if you're moving along the path of less resistance, you're likely to achieve more. So when you talk about this for UCC, I absolutely, I think it would be amazing. We could work with them. Maybe they'll even give us pointers what they're looking for, and hope that the audience and the media houses will embrace it, because there's also a lot of change component there, that you have change of mind, change of attitude towards the regulator. We need to start seeing that we are one and the same.
I agree. And then it allows the media that should be relevant, because at the end of the day, if it's not working for you, you shouldn't be wasting money in the business. If it's working, then you're relevant and people are able to, come to you. So absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Mercy, and then we had one more person at the end, and then we'll finish.
Thank you, Chair and panel. We have talked about niching in journalism, getting your niche. I, for one, I think the media, yes, we have done a lot of niching, like investigative journalism, business journalism. However, I think we could do more analysis in these niches. The latest investigative story I took interest in was the one of Semana. So I think the journalists could have maybe advised the doctors to do a little bit of personal branding to avoid impersonation. So I think with niching, we need to put more analysis and solutions to the stories we tell.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And then we'll finish over there at the back, and then we'll have Joanne and Irene do a very, very quick session on personal branding, and then John will wrap us up.
Thank you. I'm Philemon Badago from Ultimate Media Consult. I'd like to agree with Idris. It's actually good to pick out one thing and concentrate on it. As you are aware, there are so many people willing to get that content. But if you go everywhere, you are in sports, you are in this area. For example, I'll give an example of a newspaper. There are those who buy specifically to look out for a specific page. And if you are a journalist in this room, you can pick out an area and concentrate on it. And those who are interested in that area will be able to fund your content. For example, you have been talking about environment. There are those who are willing to put money in environment. There are those who are willing to put money in people with special needs.
Yeah.
If you just concentrate on an area and you are perfect in it, you are able to get those who can give you the money. And this issue of audience, actually, you cannot struggle with the audience. If you are doing the right thing for the right audience, the audience will look for you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And a big hand clap to our panel as well. I'll excuse them. Idris is burning to say something.
Just one thing, I like giving this example. In 1997, if you asked people who watch, managers at UTV then, that who do you think your biggest competitor is? 97, they would say Sun UTV.
Yeah.
In 2000, if you asked Professor Gordon Wavamuno who he thought the biggest competitor was, it would be UBC,
Yeah.
UTV.
Yeah.
In 2000, around 2000. In 2008, the OBS would, Professor Wavamuno said it's NTV.
Yeah.
By 2012, if you ask NTV, when NTV took it will tell you they are still looking at the OBS.
Yeah.
In 2016, NTV will tell you it's NBS.
NBS, yeah.
Today, if I ask the NBS that who do you think your biggest competitor is, it's none of this.
Agree.
It's TikTok.
Yep.
It's Instagram.
Yep.
It's X. It does, you know those things of where you go and get it's nowadays it's useless to just, okay, I'm saying it's not helpful to go to a computer and read, and because the audiences have shifted.
Yeah.
You are competing for eyeballs with TikTok now. It's not record. It's not NTV. It's not, and that's how far
Yeah.
the thing has gone.
I see Christina has switched on her mic as well, so.
Just one little thing. While we talk about new age media, we talk about, everything at our fingertips and all that, there's a part of me that still says the traditional way of doing things is not a bad thing. And there will be a time, an era, whereby the very same Gen Zs and the generation after that will be wanting to go back there.
Yeah.
To see how it was actually done. So it's just like people who collect vinyls.
Yeah.
Right now,
Yeah, the most expensive
the
thing
money,
you can get.
People who collect antiques. But the beautiful thing about this entity, which is the fourth estate, it just keeps giving.
Yeah.
So you find that content doesn't go off the shelf. It doesn't have a sell-by date.
That's true.
So while we're talking about this, let's also bear in mind that the structures are important for us
Yeah.
to get where we are. And also look at Umuntu wa bulijjo, how are they benefiting from all this?
Yeah. So, Abbas, I don't know if you have thought about this yet, but I've just got an idea. One of my superpowers is being able to come up with concepts and ideas.
I know.
And I've just thought, why don't we create a proper media museum? I don't know if there's any. I've not seen any here yet.
Yeah,
We're talking about floppy disks and mini disks. It would be good to actually have something like
There's a
you have
journalist.
written it down.
So
There's a journalist who's doing it. I know a senior journalist. I won't mention.
We need to find them and.
When they were asking about recorders,
Yeah.
I wrote down
Great minds think alike.
great minds, So
I hope I get to be in the inn.
We shall make you a body chair for the
Body
entity.
chair.
Yeah. No, so again, I just don't. That would be really good because I would want my sons to be able to come and see how these things were done all the time. So big thank you to our panel. We'll excuse them and allow them to step down. Please give them a big hand clap as they come. Just wanted to confirm: is Ronald here from Strong Minds? Is he still around? Wanted to. You're around. We had such a powerful session with yesterday, and I know I'm running late, but I wanted to find a way of being able to make sure you can come and talk to, especially anyone who might not have been here, about the importance of safeguarding our minds, even as we close. So maybe I'll have you do that before Jan finishes. But let's now quickly hear from Joan, and I think coming with Irene to talk very briefly about image and a case for personal branding as a journalist and why this is important. And then when they're done, we'll have Ronald just come and give us some pointers, because it's very important for us to guard our minds. Just sort of give us some advice on how to make sure we stay sane. And then Jan will close and we'll finish. So John and Irene are coming now.
Ben is good at throwing people at the deep end. Now he wants me to stand where he was, and he's taking a phone call. Good evening. My name is Abalo Irene Oto. And yesterday, when I looked at the schedule and there was this animal called branding, I got excited and I said, yes, now we get to talk about the very uncomfortable things in journalism. Someone is smiling at me and wondering, what exactly are we going to talk about in branding? I would like us to do a small exercise, all of us. We all have access to the internet, right? Anybody who doesn't have internet? Abbas, everybody has access to internet, right? In a space like this, you can't fail to have internet. So, one simple thing, just go type your name on any browser you use. Your name. If you're Linda Chibombe, please type that and see what comes out from that search engine. What does it say about you? Is it true, a true reflection of you or not? Anyone comfortable to share what they look like in the digital world? Because that is you. That's what the world knows about you. And that's your CV before you even step in any room or have a conversation with anyone on any opportunity. Someone is smiling. Is yours good? Is your CV good? Because these days we don't even ask for CVs anymore. We just go to your LinkedIn. What is it that you're posting there? Who is not on LinkedIn? God forbid. Who is not on LinkedIn? We're all on LinkedIn, right? What does yours say? Do you love what you see about yourself when you Google yourself? You do, right? Now I want you to do the reverse and go to ChatGTP. Don't laugh, because sometimes I ask, who exactly feeds this content that makes ChatGTP pick things that are wrong about me? Because if you type Abalo Irene Oto, it says things that are not true about me. So I'm beginning to correct my image on the internet based on the information I get from ChatGTP. So go to ChatGPT, there's now GTP4, and see what it says about you. Someone is smiling and someone is not searching. Are you afraid to know who you are in the digital world? Are you afraid to know who you are? And I see Simon is smiling. My friend Simon there is smiling. Simon, is it good for you? Simon, is it a good thing for you? Does your footprint look good? Because when you talk about branding in the digital age, it's not about how well you're going to come and present yourself before us here. The people who are out there who are waiting to see what's on your... what does Simon say? Please speak so we know what it says. What does it look like for Simon? Is Simon an artist? He's an artist. What kind of artist? Okay. Digital artist, whatever that means. Do we all understand who a digital artist is? We don't, right? You will research. Okay. So why am I here taking time to talk about you researching about yourself as opposed to the people that you speak to as sources? because you are also Googled by the people you speak to. If you say, I'm trying to pick a name that I'm familiar with. If you say, I am Elizabeth, for instance, and you would like to interview so and so and so and so and so and so, the first thing they do is to run and search on the internet who you are. Ben, is that right? When I got the job at a National Media Group in 2019, the first thing they did was to go to my Facebook account and search, find out who Irene is. And when I came to the panel, I was confronted with the things I've been doing without even knowing who the people were at the panel. Is that a reality for most of us? Is that a reality for most of us? That you go to speak to people and they already know so much about you, even before you speak to them, even before you introduce yourself. What does that say about us? On your profile, perhaps you're looking very cute, very beautiful. You know, like us ladies, we love makeup. Eh? I don't do makeup anyway. I do that, it's just a lip balm. Ben here is smiling. But you have that beautiful picture of you and everything about you. And then when you finally appear before people, we begin asking ourselves, is this the same person I read about on that profile? I mean, can anyone relate? Minus the makeup and everything you put on Facebook or X. Someone rebelled yesterday and said it's still Twitter and LinkedIn. Do you represent that personality that you say you are in the digital footprint? Or you are two complete different people? I have seen at weddings where the bride looks completely different from who I know. We relate. So if you are to brand yourself, especially as a journalist, as a professional, there is no way you're going to tell us that the way I behave on the digital platform is totally different from the me you see here physically seated. For instance, one thing I don't like, comfort, is that as a journalist, all I do and the best I do with my phone is stick out my tongue and take a selfie. And that's what people know me for. And that I post in my socials. The best I do as a journalist, you can check my profile, is go at the beach. Of course, we love to enjoy life, right? But is it really important that you are out there in your bikini at a beach and that is what you want the world to know about you? And then you come and say, the social media policy at my company is infringing on my right as an individual to enjoy my private space. So where do you draw the line between branding yourself, the company that you work for, and then branding yourself for you and your enjoyment? How do you detach yourself from the professional if you're a professional? What do you want the world to know you for? And when you stand before us, what do we know you for? Is it possible to detach yourself from what you post on social media? Is it possible that you'll come here and say, I am the editor? Then the next day, we are crazy at the bar, and we're doing all sorts of things. The next day, you're in front of your people telling them how to behave. Is that possible? Linda is smiling. I think she can relate. So from the way you talk to people, from the way you dress, in the morning, I literally chased out a colleague because I believed that is not her. And if you dress as though you're going to a party or to have an outing with your boyfriend, but you're coming to office, what do you want us to think of you? What's the impression that you're trying to make? So it's not just about your digital footprint and the makeup you put. When we meet you physically, are we able to relate with that beautiful makeup that you put on your face? Yes, I am winding up. Finally, if you want to be known as a journalist, but all you do is go on social media. I'm still insisting on social media. Go on social media and say lots of controversial things. And then when you come to write, some things backfire on you. How do we deal with that? Now that we are in a space where privacy perhaps works for those who care to understand issues of safety as well, online safety, right? You're in a digital space, you're putting all your children for us to see, you're being everywhere and all over the place. First, you're endangering yourself, you're endangering your family members, you're endangering all sorts of people in your surrounding. Perhaps I thought I should mention this as just a reminder, because I know these are things that the people who are seated here already know. I will hand over to Comfort. But the message I leave you here with is, we can't run away from the fact that the digital space is our CV wherever you go. Even when you're applying for opportunities, do they still ask you to send your passport photo, to send your, all those things? They don't, right? Because they know where they'll get it. And for any reason, if you don't have a digital footprint, they're going to ask you why. Have you ever been asked, if you don't have any social media account here, why you don't have it? Anyone who doesn't have a social media account? For any reason? Perhaps not, right? And if you don't have, it could be for security reasons. It could be it has been hacked into. It could, for many other reasons, but you will still try to create one because it now matters to have that digital presence. I think I'll stop here and hand over to Comfort. Please take it over from here.
Hey. Let's clap for Irene. She has given us a beautiful introduction, and I'm going to use, I think, 5 minutes just to, emphasize the importance of personal branding. When we talk about personal branding, it is something that has worked for me as a journalist, and I believe it's something that most of us need as journalists. Earlier in the morning, Ben talked about how, a journalist walks to you, they're coming to interview you, and you are wondering who this person is. Now, I want to tell you, as a result of personal branding, I believe everything I have achieved this far is as a result of personal branding. Before, I didn't know it was personal branding, but along the way, I realized all that I do, I was building a brand. Now, most of us have an image of people, or people have an image of who we are. But an image and a brand are two different things. An image is just a representation of who people think you are. And then a brand is what you are communicating to people. What do people know you for? As a journalist, you're going to interview a minister. How are you dressing? What are you saying? How are you using your social media platforms, just like Irene has highlighted? And because of personal branding, I was appointed programs director at 22 years. And the colleagues that I was working with, they thought I was young. Of course, because I was young and then female, they talked of me sleeping with my boss, sleeping my way up. But I'm glad that by the time I stepped out of that role, they were convinced that I was the right programs director. But all that came in as a result of my personal branding. Now, I have had opportunities, not because of how much I have studied, but people have seen me, they've recommended me, people have come up to me, they want to work with me because of how I have represented myself, how I have put myself out there. So what is personal branding? What values do you have? What do you want to be remembered for? All these are very, very important. Now, most of us think having a brand is about working with the huge media houses. That is wrong. I have not worked with any big media house, as people might say, but I have landed deals. I am being recognized as a journalist because of how I have positioned myself. So right now, there is so much that is happening. We have very many journalists coming out from school, and all of us are not going to be working with NTV. All of us cannot work with Media Focus on Africa. All of us cannot work with MCI, but definitely there's a position for you as a journalist, and that position depends on how you present yourself. Are you someone that people will want to listen to when we're talking journalism? Are you the kind of person that people will want to listen to when probably, let's say, we're talking branding? Yeah, the media houses that we're working for have brand departments. We have brand managers because there's a picture they want to put out there. Then you, as an individual, what are you doing? The media houses that we're working for, they have visions, they have objectives that you, as their employee, must follow. What are you doing as an employee? Do you have a vision? Do you have values? What do you want? And it's from this that at times we face the challenges that we face as journalists. We don't have a vision. We don't know where we want to go. We don't know where we are. And so anything that presents itself as an opportunity, we will want to grab, even when at times these are distractions, even when at times these are not necessary. So as a journalist, brand yourself good enough that anyone will want to work with you, regardless of where you are. And I love telling people, stop hiding in company brands. Stop hiding in the fact that, I'm working with this media house. I am working with this company. You are not that company. When you leave, what happens? We've seen media personalities that have worked with big media companies, but the moment they step out, we don't know what is happening with them. But then we've seen personalities that have worked with media houses, even when they step out, they are still relevant. So what I want to ask is, as a journalist, do you want to make an impact? Do you want to be relevant? Or you just want to have the title of being a journalist? That is the question that you yourself can answer. It is not something that I can do for you. But after getting that question, after getting the answer to that question, you'll decide whether you want to build your personal brand or not. Remember, how you present yourself is how you are going to be perceived. The money that you want to get, I'll not give you money when I don't see you deserving of that money. You cannot ask me for 2 million as salary, and yet when I look at you, you deserve 500. What you are, how you present yourself, is what you're going to receive. Thank you so much.
Joanne, I hope that I did my part. A bit-ish in personal branding. And then it's an important topic that we must reflect on. And then unfortunately, we didn't have all the time to talk about it, but food for thought, food for reflection, and Ben told stories about all of those things, but part of the reason some people think that journalists are in a certain category is because how we present ourselves. And so thank you very much, Irene, and thank you so much, Comfort, for that. Yesterday, we spoke a little bit on mental health, and some of you felt that the subject wasn't adequately presented. And I know we are running out of time, but the conversation continues, and I'm going to ask Ronald to come here again, and we are glad that he returned to the second day of the media week, and talk and share with us. Yesterday he provoked us. I reached home and I just slept. But there's more fundamental things you can say, so please, the floor is yours. You have all the liberty to share with us, and if anyone has any questions, we can still reach out to him. Some of you have media houses, and we are talking about diversifying content and information. When was the last you had information and content about mental health? Is there any way you can get Ronald to come and speak to you and speak to this issue such that we address it even in a broader level? So over to you, Ronald. We thank you so much for making it back here. We now want to hear more of what we missed out yesterday. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jan, and good to see you again. You are welcome. I'm glad I'm back, and we have this time again to share. I hope the few minutes we have can be impactful and transformational, and just giving you information. Okay, so we dive again into mental health. I'm glad to hear that there's somebody who is in the media but focusing on mental health. I wish we can have another discussion. That's also great. It's very good to hear. And for us being here as experts in mental health, it's very, very important. My name is Ronald again, and I'm from Strong Minds. Strong Minds, we are a mental health organization, and we are majorly treating depression, but also supporting all other people that are suffering from other mental disorders, and by referrals. So that's what we majorly do. Let's go deeper a little bit into mental health. And I want to ask a question, if you allow me, John, just 2 or 3 people. I just want to ask, what is the local language, the word for mental illness in your local language? Mental illness in your local language. So quickly. So any word for mental illness in your local language. So we have one here, and this is Agnes. So we have Agnes. Yeah. Let's have like 3, and it will be good if we have different languages.
Okay, this
Which
is
language is that?
Swahili.
Swahili,
Magonjwa ya akili.
Magonjwa ya akili.
Magonjwa.
Magonjwa.
Yeah.
And if you can interpret for us in English, what does that mean?
Sickness of the mind, of the brain.
Sick of the brain.
Something like that.
Something like that. Okay.
Iraro.
Irano. Which language is that?
Correct.
Lunyankole.
Yes.
And what does that mean? Madness. So we have a gentleman here. Okay, here and then here. Great.
Mulalu.
Mulalu. That's Luganda. Okay.
Buyas. Buyas. Like
Buyas.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Madness.
Madness. Lastly.
Hello all. By the way, I'm Nuruddin. I'm Sudanese. I come from Czech Sudan. It's platform for fact checking Sudanese. So that is me. I speak Arabic. That means in Arabic it's called Majnoon.
Majnoon.
Majnoon like mad.
Mad.
Something like that. Thank you.
Okay, and I want to ask another question. For this one, you don't want to answer. You may not need to answer. Okay, how many of us have given names to somebody suffering from a physical illness? You are suffering of malaria, and yes, you're called malaria.
This one, nobody is going to come out of the open for this question.
Exactly, because there is none. When it comes to mental illnesses, we are tagging people. So we name tag people because of their sickness. And so we even call them mulalu, mad, and all those other words that you mentioned that I can't remember. So that's where the problem starts from. And it's very important for us who are in the media that we come out to demystify the myths around mental health. And I hope and I believe that's where it even needs to start from for us who are seated in this room. Before we even come to workplace mental health or even to your personal, how about the people that we are serving? The places where you're taking those stories from. So many are not even aware. There is too much ignorance and stigma around mental health. And if we do not come out to deal with that, we are not going to be able to really help. But also, as people in the media, you want to know that the public is counting on us for every information. And I'm glad you've been talking about this information and everything. But are you also thinking about, in that angle, what is the information that is going around about mental health? So just for us to really think, and when we get out of this room, we know what really we can do about this, because we have a role to play in this. And so for us, it is important that we also have a clue of what mental health looks like and what mental illness looks like. And briefly, that's what I want to talk about, that you also know what to do. You also know how to tell that somebody is suffering from a mental illness. And basically, for today, I'll majorly focus on the mood disorders and majorly depression, which is the commonest mental disorder in the world. And that is the commonest that we are suffering from here in Uganda. So that will be our biggest focus. And that's why Strong Minds is basically focusing on treating depression. So mental health, so many of us, as you mentioned, we are thinking about someone who is not okay, or somebody who is probably psychotic, probably schizophrenic, or probably who is having bipolar, from the terms that we have been giving. But somebody to be considered mentally healthy is somebody who is holistic, somebody who is able to work productively, somebody who is able to control their emotions, and somebody who is able to make a contribution in their community. So that's when we know that somebody is mentally healthy. It's not just absence of disease. Mental health is not just absence of a mental illness, but holistically being able to achieve and work productively, contribute to your community, and also be able to have control of your emotions. So that's mental health. So there are many mental disorders, and I would want us to go out of this room with a clue of some of these disorders, especially the commonest that we meet in our communities, or where we are working. And that is focusing on depression. And how are you going to tell that I am depressed or my colleague is depressed? How do I know? Number one, depression causes severe loss of interest in your formerly pleasurable activities. So once you realize that, the things I used to enjoy, the things I used to do willingly, I no longer have interest in them, then you're getting to realize you're getting depressed. Number two, feeling so sad. Sadness, severe sadness and feeling down and loss of hope. And number three, sleep problems. You're having problems with your sleep. And that is either sleeping too much or sleeping too less. Insomnia and hypersomnia. Then you start telling, okay, I'm getting a problem here. I'm not okay. Number three, fatigue. And basing on the work you do and what we were talking about yesterday and everything that I was hearing, we are so susceptible to this. So fatigue is a telltale sign that you could be experiencing depression. And then appetite challenges. You start having appetite problems, and either having too less, you are not able to eat, or you are overeating than usual. Number six, you're going to tell that you are depressed by feeling worthless, losing your self-worth, and all feelings of guilt. When you start saying that, you realize could be I'm experiencing depression. And then concentration problems. So if you start experiencing concentration problems, you know it could be a sign that you are not okay mentally. And then number 8, psychological or psychomotor problems, psychomotor challenges. That's when your body functionality changes. Somebody who has been working with powers, you've been speaking audibly, you find changes in your speech, you find changes in the way you walk, then you know there is something that is not okay. And lastly, and this is the worst, if depression is not really, if you're not supported, it can lead to suicidality. So you start thinking about taking yourself, thinking you would be better off dead. Oh, the world would be a better place without you. And so you think about taking yourself. Or sometimes homicides. And we have had people, or you've even covered stories of someone killing their family and also killing themselves. That's homicide. And we see that so many times in people that are facing depression, severe depression. So, once we know that, it is important that we know now how to really go and care for our mental health. Because it is another thing to know what to do, but when you do not know what you're doing about. That's why I felt it's very important that we get to know the telltale signs. How do I know that I am not okay? How do I know my friend is not fine? And so, when all those symptoms are happening to you for more than 2 weeks, the recommendation is go and seek for professional help. So many times we are thinking, I have stress. I am stressed. And that is the slogan we go around with. I am stressed. But listen, if what we have talked about today are happening and for more than 2 weeks, that's no longer stress. You are not stressed. You are sick and you need help. So how is this treated? It's treated by therapy or medications. Psychotherapy or counseling and medications. We do not recommend medications at an early stage. At initial stages, psychotherapy is okay. So medications are recommended at the worst stage. For example, if you are becoming suicidal, then we recommend you take your antidepressants as you couple it with psychotherapy. So it's very, very important. Now, when do you go to look for professional help? One, if those symptoms are severe and they have occurred for more than 2 weeks. Number two, if your functionality is impaired. If you say that your functionality is impaired, you no longer work the same way you used to work. Or your colleague is no longer working as they were working. They are not productive as they were productive. Before you think of giving a warning letter, think about their health. Are they okay? Somebody has been working well. They have been productive. And now it has changed. Probably it's a sign they need support. So, when the symptoms are severe, when productivity has been, or functionality has been impaired, you need to look for professional help. And I will stop there because of time and recommend that all that is happening, please, we are here for you. Strong Mind is here for you. We are a totally free organization. We offer free services, free mental health services to everyone that looks for them. Thank you so much for having us. Daniel, we appreciate it.
Wow. So how do, if I don't want anybody to know that I'm coming to you?
If you don't want to know that you are coming, okay. So I'll give a number which you can reach out to us for you to be able to receive private treatment. But mainly we do our psychotherapy in groups. We use a model which is scalable for our Ugandan, I could say poor people who cannot afford therapy. A therapy session, a cheapest, goes for 100,000 shillings. Yeah, a cheapest. And now most of our Ugandans are not able to support themselves for that. So we use a model that is scalable to be able to reach everyone. So we use interpersonal psychotherapy for groups, which is IPTG, a well-researched therapy model which works to treat depression. But if you are here and you're like, I don't want to go into groups, but I also can't afford a psychotherapy session to a professional psychologist, Strong Minds is there to support, and you can reach out. I'm trying to find the number, which I can give out. I don't want to give out my personal number. Okay, so you can reach out at Strong Minds on 0200 923 340. 0200 923 340. I hope we have written it. Yeah,
Yes.
so when you call, you will be able to get private professional therapy, which is also free.
On the house. Thank you so much, Ronald, for that. I have seen that some people have questions or thoughts. But as we come to a close.
Just a few thoughts, yeah. Just a few thoughts. I worked at NTV, like I told you, and I happened to work with somebody who was severely depressed. Severely. So she admitted to me on my podcast, and she said, for the first time, I have felt like killing myself a number of times. And then one time it became so bad that she told me that today, as I'm driving home, I think this is what is going to happen. And I remember that this person was a person who everybody looked at as she's always grumpy, she doesn't want to talk to people, she doesn't want to share her computer, she doesn't want to share her desk, she doesn't want to do one. Now, one thing that I'd just like you to know is that many of our workplaces, they don't care. They don't. Why haven't you come to work? When are you coming to work next? You may have a sick child. Like I said, you might even be depressed. But also, no offense to people who have actually been diagnosed as being depressed. I feel that that word is thrown around very carelessly sometimes. I may be sad because of a situation that has happened in my life. Sad. 2 days, 3 days, maybe something has happened between me and my boyfriend or something like that, and I'm like, oh, I'm so depressed. It's just like the word people use, narcissistic, these days. I think what is happening is that these kinds of words are fashionable. You people, you should meet somebody who is really depressed. And what I was going to ask you in this is that, do you have to have all those symptoms that you talked about? Or you need to, if there are 10, you need to have like 8 of them. Yeah? My second question is, how does stress affect your mental health?
Thank you so much.
Okay, Yusuf, and then Madame Rose, Mary, and then
Okay, Ronald, me, I wanted to know if depression, okay, you differentiate for me these two, being stressed and being depressed. And then, which of the two causes severe headache? Thank you. Severe headache.
Mine is just the relationship or interaction of depression and alcohol or substance abuse.
okay, over to you. Oh my God. All right.
My name is Elizabeth. I'm from UPC. Okay, my question is, sometimes you can notice a colleague is actually going through depression or is severely depressed, but they tend not to want to open up. How do you go about that? How do you help? Thank you.
Okay, good question, Sam.
Thank you. My name is Zan. My question is, if I'm like, I talk alone, is it a sign of no, is it like at an age of?
Okay. Thank you so much. Beautiful questions here. And I can't say we have all the time for us to really go deeper into answering these questions, but I hope I can do you a service in the few minutes that we have. And so because she's moving out, I'll postpone her question. And yours was the difference between stress and depression, and what causes headaches, severe headaches. Okay, now the simplest way for you to tell the difference between stress and depression is the duration of symptoms. Most of them present with the same symptoms, but the easiest way to tell is by duration of symptoms. And that's what she was saying. Many times we are stressed and you're saying, I'm depressed. Like I said, if your symptoms have not lasted for more than 2 weeks, and those are 14 days, we do not categorize you as depressed. Probably you're having some events that have caused you stress, and so you are being stressed. Now, which one of them causes headaches? Both can. You can have an event which stresses you so much, and so you have a headache, which will go away for some time. But also with depression, because of these severe symptoms, headaches really tend to do what? To come and happen, yeah. I think Rose. So Rose was asking about the relationship between, pardon me, a bit? Okay, the interaction between depression and alcohol. Friends, let's get to this. Every mental disorder can be caused by alcohol and drug abuse. That's how serious it is. Drug abuse can lead to every mental disorder you know, be it psychosis, be it schizophrenia. When we are doing assessments, we categorize them and we can say drug-induced depression, drug-induced psychosis, drug-induced schizophrenia, drug-induced mania. Yeah, so drugs and alcohol are so bad, so bad with your mental health. Yeah. Okay, and my sister over there was like, is talking to self, not over talking, but talking by myself. Is it a symptom of mental illness? Now, we do not want to say you are not okay just because we have found you talking to yourself. There are people who do that and they are healthy. But it can be a symptom, especially in psychosis. Yeah, it can be a symptom with people that have psychosis, especially with hallucinations or delusions. Yeah. Okay. The last one was for her that has left. Okay. Oh, sorry. How do you help? Yes, how do you help somebody who is not opening up? They are sick, you are seeing that they are sick, but they are not doing what? They are not opening up. And that is very, very common with our colleagues. They are not able to do what? Open up. But we want to ask ourselves, why are they not opening up? One, could be they are not sure of confidentiality. They are doubting. Are you a confidential friend? Do they find that confidentiality in you? Number two, as I said yesterday, have you put a psychological safe place that they know, even when I say this, I know I'm in wrong, I could be in wrong, but what I did has depressed me. Am I safe to talk about the wrong I have done with these people? So try to nurture that environment. But also, if you see they are not opening up to you, better recommend them. Recommendations really work. Yeah, it will be easy for them to open up to a professional that they are just meeting than opening up probably to you, who is known to them and they think you can speak or say their secrets to somebody else. Thank you so much.
Okay, you're thinking or you want to ask him a question? If you want to ask him a question, I hope that I'm requesting that Ronald can, okay, yes? I might,
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Divine Mercy Nalwanga. I am a journalist.
Yes,
and
Mercy.
I am currently working on a story about eating disorders. And while I was making my research and I talked to a few professionals, I noticed that eating disorders are more of a mental illness, then how people appreciate that. So I would like you to explain to me in the simplest way, like how are eating disorders a mental illness, to a point that I'll be able to understand that the people who are going through this are actually struggling with something. Because sometimes you'll see someone eating little food and you think, maybe they just want to cut weight, or eating a lot of food and you think it's a very high appetite, but then it's a mental illness. Thank you.
Okay, so with eating disorders being mental disorders, when it comes to mental disorders, how we categorize and know it's a mental disorder is when it has affected functionality, it has affected behavior, and it has affected cognition. So if somebody with an eating problem, it is affecting their behavior, it is affecting their functionality, and it is affecting their cognition, then it is a mental disorder. And you're going to see them so many times that somebody, for example, in bulimia nervosa, which happens so much in adolescents. An adolescent goes and eats, and after eating, they go and induce vomiting because of the society. Society has named beauty to be slim. And so they induce vomiting, then they eat again, induce vomiting to make sure they are going to keep slim and or keep the social norm for beauty. So it is a problem, and it's a disorder because it is affecting their functionality, it is affecting their behavior, and it affects their social environments. Yeah, so that's why they are termed into disorders.
Okay, wow, I think let's stand up and clap for Ronald. You have put a lot in context, and we thank you. Some of the terms he was talking about, I find, can be a beginning of a future story about the entire subject. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank you so much for your participation and for your presence and for your insights and for your deliberations. It has indeed been a conference of all protocols ignored. And so I thank you very much that you came, but I also thank you very much that you stayed, and thank you very much that you have made a contribution to what will convert to actions as we set ourselves up for the next year, which is actually a very critical year in our country, in our democracy. And now I just ask for extra time to say thank you to you all. I think just turn to somebody next to you and tell them well done for staying. Well done. And we will not hold you here any longer, but I just want to thank all our partners and sponsors, all the partners who have worked with us, DW Academy, Jamii Forums, Waweza, Policy, the Africa Center for Media Excellence, Strong Minds, Media Challenge Initiative, Article 19, Africa Institute for Investigative Journalism, Pepsi, that has been taking care of us throughout since yesterday. I would like to say thank you to them, and also for all the other partners who have been there, the academia represented by the universities, the different civil society organizations, and all of you who are journalists and other media actors. You are a partner in this, and your contribution is highly regarded, and I would like to thank you. So let me tell you one thing. Shall we meet again in November 2025? Looking forward to hearing what you did different, and if you have any things to share in the course of the year, please flag us and let's see what you're doing, and let's walk the journey with you. I thank you all, and please, I would like, yes, I would like Mr. Abbas to send us off from this place because we have been in his territory. And
All right. I won't take a lot of time, so thank you so much for staying with us. Thank you so much for supporting John and the whole team at Media Focus in Africa. Thank you for supporting the media. When we started, I said, this room, we need more journalists, we need more media owners, media managers to be in this conversation. And I hope that the next one we can you can help us to pull, those stakeholders to be in here. I think for me that would be my rallying cry for the next, so that the conversations that are happening are also really going back to the media houses and the different stakeholders in the media industry. Yeah. Happy New Year. Good night. John is going to communicate a drink.
Thanks. I would like to, as we leave, to thank the team at Media Focus on Africa. They have worked together tirelessly. Cedric, he's my man on programs. We work together. He's the man on environment and climate, and I thank him for his efforts. Make sure this conversation on climate change, for example, environment, in addition to the other things that he has done, and he curated as much as he could. And I appreciate him. Solomon is my man on communications. His excuse might be that he's now behind the scenes, but I'm looking forward to seeing him here before I give him a day off. Solomon Chisame, brilliant. The task was to break the internet. I don't know whether he did it. Such that the audiences out there still get everything that needs to be understood.